ownership then.
Jump for their
Because he probably
retirement,
got rid of it.
So it's
White.
probably been 3 months.
Okay, let's
on that
Look
big
at your
salary
font,
to
you probably
retire.
changed, somebody changed it to white.
no, this happened to,
Sal Sean Gillen, she's doing okay?
No,
Did you get her either?
How you doing?
I saw that face. Is it all white too?
Why does it keep doing that?
She's fixing it right now.
Yeah, Sally, are you just exiting out and reloading it?
okay,
Well, I
where's
clicked on
Bradley?
this to
Bradley,
see
we're having
something
issues
and
with
then
all of them.
see, it's not me, brother.
It was just Baker.
Yeah, his is white as well.
Mine's perfectly fine.
Mine is okay.
Mine's
Maybe
on,
it's an operator.
because mine's on a USB, that's why.
So I clicked on there, you click on there to get it to come up, it's been spinning. You know, it's been spinning.
If it screws again,
I put cursor over
know.
there and clicked
Show
on it.
up, click the buttons, Jerry. We don't know.
You know what I think it is, George? It's something that got smaller as the older we got.
It's Adobe on this one.
It got smaller instead of getting bigger.
But remember when your school teacher said, oh, you have to learn all this complicated math because you'll never have a calculator with you at all times?
You just reloaded it and it was okay?
His was doing the spinning deal.
I always have a calculator.
Probably don't turn these off.
Well, I never actually learned that now, so.
He's trying to find it and open it up, isn't it?
Very nice.
I've been treated a lot worse.
Enough time for all
Up on
this.
the top of that door is
Come on, mister.
I got my thing right here. It's all right.
You might need to get, you have another one?
yes, Bradley's
Uh,
that way.
Did you grab another? I think she said you have one more.
Yes, look in the, Anna's office that's plugged in.
well, can you close it and just download it?
Okay, I'm gonna have to.
Lowercase. Turn it off.
Turn it off, turn it on again.
Top.
Kick it. Hit it a little hand.
Drop kick it.
Sorry?
Throw it up against the wall.
I'm gonna keep this one with me and I'll shut it off and bring it back to you.
Do we have a spare?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's grabbing one. You want me to get it, Nate?
Lester, you can have mine.
I got this. This is,
Bradley's gonna get you another one.
Okay.
All right, we'll get started in just a second. Yep, I guess it is, it's 6:30.
yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everybody to the Lake Jackson City Council meeting on Monday, December 6th. This is a regular session at 6:30 at 25 Oak Drive here in Lake Jackson. We'll begin the evening with Pledge of Allegiance being led by Councilwoman Rhonda Seth.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We'll have an invocation by Councilman John Baker.
Let us pray. Dear most Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. And most Heavenly Father, as we get ready to do our duties to serve this city, please bless us and keep us in the right state of mind to make positive decisions for our city. Bless our firefighters, our EMS, law enforcement, and our military. And then, most Heavenly Father, as we get ready to go home, give us traveling grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you very much. Next, we have visitor comments. Do we have any comments from anybody that's visiting this evening that on an item that is not on the scheduled agenda? All right, not seeing anybody. We'll move on to declaration of conflict of interest. This is an opportunity for any member on city council to declare a conflict of interest on any item on the regular scheduled agenda. Do we have any declaration of conflict of interest to be stated? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Have a consent agenda item 1 is approval of minutes of November 15, 2021 of City Council. We have item 2 is accept boards and commission minutes from Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful. We have approved interlocal agreement with Brazoria County for roads and bridge maintenance. We have item 4, it's award a bid to Novus Wood Group for annual wood grinding at the unit rate of $2.31 per cubic yard and in an amount not to exceed $160,000. Number 5, resolution approving the license plate reader program. And item 6 is approve amendment to the dress code. Is there any item that council would like to remove for further discussion? Not hearing so, I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
Move for approval, consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Second. Have a motion and a second by Councilman Sinhanya. I think it's who I heard.
It was me.
Yeah, you were first, and then second was
Okay.
by Sinhanya. I got it, correct,
Okay.
thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda has been approved. Move on to regular agenda item. Item 1, discuss and consider request to amend Chapter 78, signs to allow the installation of signs when renting a venue along the venue's perimeter. Mr. Pat is the one that's requested this item. Modesto, you want to give some background?
Yes,
You can
Travis
go-
Page has made
Page,
this request. I did, staff spoke with Travis quickly on Friday. He is making a request for you to, I guess, ask for an exception in the sign ordinance to allow what we call or define off-premise signs. We allow, signage or, I guess, any type of temporary signage or banners on site for an event. But when it's off-site or in the right-of-way, it's an off-premise site, and those are prohibited by ordinance. So even we don't allow that, except for council has allowed signage on the day of event for directions. If it was a major event, it's like council has approved like for the birding event, when a lot of people were coming from out of town. They were not from the area and they needed direction.
Yeah, on 332.
To there. We've not approved any special events for something that's, regular of nature. And so that's where we are. Travis is, making that request, but if council really wanted to do it, you'd have to change the ordinance, and you couldn't grant an exception. But I've told Travis that staff's not really crazy about this, so he knows what he's up against, but he has his right to come and speak to you and try to convince you otherwise.
Tell us what you're looking for.
How's it going?
Name and
so-
address, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Travis Pate, 302 Caladium Street. So I'm here to just request some simple signs. These signs would be on the stretch of Oak Drive between Centerway and Parking Way in front of the bank and the two-story building, the Best Insurance Building and Third Coast Bank. It wouldn't affect either of those businesses simply because those two businesses are closed on Saturdays when we hold our event. Our event is off the roadway and behind buildings, which makes it difficult to bring in traffic from the road. It was brought to my attention that maybe people would have issues with this, such as the mall market that they have, which that's great. They can have that. They just have so much attention with the tents being popped up right there at the parking lot behind Red Lobster. That being said, I'm not just here to request signs for the South Park and Place Pavilion where the market is held. I'm here to request signs for any city-rented venue, as long as they can put signs on an adjacent roadway that is not going to block drivers' views of anything. It's not going to damage city or personal property. And all it is for is it could be to direct people there that aren't familiar with the area. For instance, we have people that come from the Houston, Bay City, League City area all the time. Having those signs would help customers, whether they planned on being here or didn't know we were there before, be able to come in. In turn, that doesn't only help our vendors with their customer customer base, heightening the traffic. It also helps our downtown businesses. I've talked to many businesses in our historic downtown area, the junkie, what is it called? Junk Rescuers, Fill Station, they all, and many more. A lot of them say that we do bring a lot of clientele on our second Saturday markets. I just feel like we could bring more clients as far as just putting those few signs along the roadway. I know we had some maps that I had sent over that doesn't only, like I said, advocate for the South Park and Place Pavilion, but also any other city rented venue.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I don't see any in the packet.
We didn't have any in the packet.
Where'd you say, on Oak Drive, from where to
you know,
where?
the south,
Pull up a Google map.
basically from Phil Station to the museum, the Dow Museum.
Just that one little block?
Just that, yeah. Right there along the city, we have, oh, I got a laser pointer here.
You gonna put them on
So
the
we
median?
are right here at the pavilion. The first week we were at the pavilion, we had a sign here on the corner, and a couple in front of the bank, and then here at the other corner of Centerway. And I was advised by the code enforcer that that was not allowed. I was like, no problem. So that was where I would want to put the signs. It's just along this little stretch of Oak, just to bring some business, not just to us, but like I said, the rest
Not
of,
on the median, they're gonna
not
be
on the median, right
Okay.
there in front of the two closed
Gotcha.
businesses.
Is that
and
one block?
One block, yes, sir.
Have you had an opportunity to actually speak to any of the business owners? to
Yes,
see if
I
they
talked
would-
to the owner of Phil Station. He says every market day, we bring many people into his establishment, and he has no issue with the signs. And he is the only open business on that stretch, and you can't really consider it Oak Drive because he's far back, but he's the only business on that stretch that's open on a Saturday. So he would really be the only one with an issue, and he actually loves the market. He gives us ice for our free water that we give out to people and things like that. We recently became members of the chamber. We're very city-oriented. We want nothing but the best for not just our vendors, but for the downtown businesses as well. And I think just a few signs would help bring these people from Oak Drive who don't know that it's going on, because as you can see, I got the bank, Best Insurance, blocking our view from the tents,
Yep.
from the main drag.
Well, from the sidewalk to the Oak Drive, that's city property.
Correct.
Even behind the sidewalk is, a lot of that is city property.
Yeah,
We
sidewalk
get,
to,
Oak Drive, the right-of-way on Oak Drive, or the Parkway is quite wide. Now, I'd have to defer to Sally, probably ebbs and flows from the distance, but yeah, there's I would say probably 5 to 10 feet easily behind the sidewalk, easily is city property.
okay.
So over, when you
But
go,
where he wants to put them is city proproperty.
Most likely.
Yeah,
Right there by the curb. I mean,
Yeah,
right there
by the
where it's,
curb,
yeah,
yeah.
where it's noticeable.
yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
so I'm not a very big proponent of snipe signs, because you drive down Houston and even down 288, when new development is coming up, you see all these signs, turn here, 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 and it's just very unsightly. And if we let you do it, then people get confused, because right now they know they can't do it in Lake Jackson. Even then, we have a lot of, there were some signs out this weekend on Oyster Creek Drive near HEB, Christmas light signs, install Christmas light, this number. So it just becomes very unmanageable. I understand your position, but so that can be claimed by every business, that I want to put a snap sign because people don't see my business is way back inside.
Right.
So it's just, I'm just not in favor of it.
I understand your position on that, and I agree. These signs are not very good-looking whenever they are out and in the weather a lot, and it all becomes muddled, right? So we don't want that. What I am proposing is that any city venue, you're renting it for, let's say, 7 a.m. to midnight, from the Civic Center to Jasmine Hall. If you're having an event there, whether it's a wedding, birthday, or in my case, a business venture, then you post signs saying, hey, my wedding is here. People that aren't from the area, they get to know, hey, this is where it is. Because it's
Yes.
not exactly off the roadway or, off the main drag, it's out of sight. And that's all this would be doing. And like I said, I understand the signs aren't that sightly, but they wouldn't be there 24/7. They would be there between the hours of 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. and taken down. But
Every day taken down?
just Saturday. Second Saturday of every month is when we have our market.
That's the only time you can put them up?
Well, yes. I mean,
Okay.
that's the only time we want them.
All right.
We don't own 110 South Parking Place. We
So
just rent it.
Does this constitute a snap sign, or is this a different type
Well,
of
it's
sign?
This is a
considered-
feather
This one is
flag.
considered a banner, so it falls under the banner provisions. Well,
Yep.
and this one would be
It was
considered,
proposal. I'm not gonna
a sign.
pay money for that if we can't
Yeah.
have it, so.
the question is not regulating the sign, the question is, allowing the sign in the public right-of-way.
Okay, so the problem is, I mean, what Travis wants to do, and he'll do it, and he'll do a good, clean job, and he'll get his signs back up. The problem is, we can't make a special rule for our venues, because
Right.
we're out in the marketplace with everyone else. We would have to let everyone who has a venue anywhere in town to put signs in our right-of-way. And they're not gonna act like Travis does. And that's, well, okay, let me just do the legal part, not the opinion part. So, we would have to let everyone else do it. We'd have to open up the sign ordinance and say, yes, if you've got a temporary venue, you can put up a sign in our right-of-way, or you can put up an off-premise in front of someone else's business. That's what we would have to do. We'd have to open up the ordinance and allow these temporary event signs.
Our longstanding position has been is that we do not allow off-premises signs. So let me go back to the overview of the complex, downtown again. So when we had talked a while back, the question was, when you were told to pull your signs back and stuff, my question, I went back to Modesto here just recently also, is that this property, this over here, is this city property?
It is.
And that's connected to the venue. I mean, it's in and out of the venue. This over here is private property, I assume. Somewhere over here?
No.
Okay, so that's still city.
I would say.
Parts of it, some parts of it
This
city.
This is city,
Right.
this parking, and this is probably city here as well.
Yeah, I was gonna put campaign signs right where you're doing it, you told me I couldn't do it because it's city.
Right. Okay.
So question, can he put the signs on private property? So for example, if he went to Third Coast Bank and said, can I
No.
put a
No.
sign here? You can't do that either.
Because off-premises sign becomes the off-premises sign.
Okay.
So we have an issue, I mean, we've had several requests in the past for a business sign for a business to put their sign on another business property, i.e., a hotel on mall property, and we do not allow that. It's an off-premise sign.
So what you're saying, Sherry, this isn't an individual deal.
No, you can't
Can't do it.
just let Travis do it and nobody else. You have to let everybody do it.
When we do the special for the flags and all that, that's an
What
individual.
flags? What do you mean?
On Oyster Creek Drive.
That's a
Oh.
city property.
That's,
We're still putting on city, that come to us and ask
there,
permission.
that's not an advertisement.
Oh, okay,
That,
okay.
and that's what, yeah,
Okay.
and it's just a symbol.
Gotcha.
What we have said, what we've allowed for directional or notice, is that we are allowing on South Parking Place, because this is rented, and what they're doing is they're renting the road. We've allowed them to put a sign, they can put a sign here and a sign here at the entryway. And I know that's not the greatest location to catch traffic as I hear, but it's at least a flag or something notifying that,
So-
a renter is having an event here.
I have a quick question. So if both of those locations that you just pointed out, those are also city property, what is the difference there? Those are still adjacent roadways, you know what I mean?
Technically, we should not allow that.
Well, I mean, are they not part of the premises that's being rented?
Well,
Because it's the off-premises
We're making that
portion.
stretch of, because when we rent it, they're renting the road.
Right, so that becomes the premises.
That
and
becomes
so
Well, they are
it's
renting the
not
road because
off premises.
we are restricting traffic down
Yes.
that road. So
And
they
so
are
that's why
renting that
we're,
road. So that's why
we're making that
we're
stretch
making
to
that
allow that.
stretch to allow that.
Because it's not off premises.
No, it's
Part of the premises
it's
that's being
contingent.
They're
temporarily
renting, they're
leased.
renting all
But-
of it.
And Sherry, you're saying too, in addition to, obviously, we can't make individual exceptions for individual people, but you're saying even for our own facilities, they can't be distinguished in the ordinance versus a commercial facility
That's
that
right.
provides the same service.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So we couldn't, I'm willing to pay some sort of, extra fee to, and I think this is, like I said, this is in any venue. This is if I want to go back to the Civic Center and have it again. We could pay some sort of little sign fee for your venue rental. I think that, if anything, sets y'all's venues apart from the private venues,
Well-
which in turn gives the city revenue.
Whenever we have, at the Civic Center, whenever we bring the marquee up, if you're a renter there, you'll be able to use the marquee, is that correct?
Yes, Travis would be able to use the marquee.
On premises.
On premise, it's
On
on
premise,
premise.
because it's part of the rental of the Civic Center, So it would advertise farmer's market on South Parking Place. That's not today.
Right.
That's probably a year from when. And even on this point, it's like, even the city, we do not put signs in the right of way. When we put banners up and stuff, we make sure that it is on city property. So even when we put a festival of lights, we back it up out of the right of way to put it on city property. We only put directional signage, you know, speed limits and things like that, we keep out of the right of way. We treat ourselves just like we treat every business.
And like I said, I'm from here, I love the city, I want nothing but the best. What about the banner that's right there at the corner of Oak and 332?
That's the example I give. We make sure it's on the
City property.
city property.
Of the premises that it's being rented.
Now, how about if you took the banner and put it on the property of the bank and the Best Building?
That's what I was asking.
No.
Yeah.
That's off premises.
It's considered off premise.
That's an
So
off-premise
what if
sign.
he had a truck magnet
I've got a truck
and
magnet,
parked
but
it in?
as you can see,
seriously.
there's nowhere to
Yeah,
park
I'm
though.
serious.
I've got a
If you
trailer
could-
that I could
It's-
put a big logo
No.
on, but
No,
there's
it's
nowhere to
invited-
park. You know
No.
what I mean?
You can have a human hold the sign.
Yes.
I understand that, and I
You out there
understand,
flipping the sign?
yes.
Maybe
That
we
was
have
one.
a
That usually
magnetic
costs
One the other day.
money,
wrap your
um,
truck.
yeah, well,
Even the
Figure this out, Travis.
even the truck with a sign on the back parked an event is considered off premise that we police. Because we've had problems with that in the past.
That's right.
Mattress sale over it.
Yeah, we've had businesses that have marked up their vehicles and parked it elsewhere to advertise and just park it there. It's one thing to be driving around town. It's another thing to park it someplace.
Sure.
It becomes a sign once it's parked.
We're trying to help you, Travis. It's
I,
just,
I'm,
just
I'm,
trying
look,
to.
I'm just here to talk, and if we can come to an agreement, that's great.
I mean, I don't mind banners. Banners look nice. I mean, they're not snipe signs, you know, so.
Well, banner or sign, it just, again, if it's off premise, we would have to change the ordinance, and we can't just restrict it to where
Oh, I
it's
understand.
only acceptable for this one location or whatever.
I understand.
I'm not asking for the one location. I'm asking for every city venue, so that it doesn't just, oh, we're just playing favorites. It's for the city venues, which I think, like I said, you can make money off of this with charging, whatever, $15 for a sign fee.
And Sherry, you're saying again that we can't
So.
do anything that
when
would
we're in
benefit
a-
our facilities over some commercial
That's
facility.
right. When we're in the private marketplace, which we are.
Right.
Then we can't make special rules to favor us. We have to act evenly with all the marketplace.
So anything they could do at the Civic Center, they'd have to be able to do also at the hotel. They got a little ballroom there or whatever that they rent for similar
Right.
purposes.
I mean, the only thing that we could put up there is a directional sign like we have for, you know, museum or library, that if we,
Says-
well,
for
we
the-
have
for
a
the
directional
venue.
sign for the Alden Museum. I mean, I guess we could put
It'd be
South
for the
Parking
South
Place
Parking Place
Pavilion.
Pavilion.
It would have to be
Oh, yeah.
Generic.
generic and not for an event.
To the location.
To the location.
And we have been in talks with the museum people as well. They're getting the renovations done. They wanted to touch base with us because they wanted us to, you know, facilitate some sort of spot for them to lead people in and take them around the museum after they're done with the construction, which we were more than willing to do as well. So maybe we can figure that out when we
I
cross
guess
that
they could
bridge.
paint the side of their building home of the farmer's market.
It's all windows.
Look,
basically.
it's
It is
just the
almost
second
all
Saturday. I'm
windows.
just, you know, trying to help out.
When did
and,
you take over the farmer's market?
Back in September.
September.
Yes.
I love that we have one for Lake Jackson.
That's great. We're trying to grow it.
Keep
Yeah, I mean,
thinking maybe we can come up with something, because right now, what Sherry is telling us that we really can't.
Yeah, and that makes
do,
sense.
what you
Now that I
asking
hear
us
it,
to
now
do.
that I hear it in that aspect, it does make sense. So,
Okay, let me ask you a question. If we went over there and we put, no, that would be an on-premises sign, sorry. I'll take that back. But we could put the sign on Oak Drive that points directional, that says South Parking Place venue or whatever, pavilion.
Home of the Lake Jackson Farmer's Market.
No, that's what I was gonna say.
Sponsored-
That's what I was gonna
sponsored
say,
by-
but it was,
Well, I
would be
mean,
off
that,
premises.
that was the request from the museum. The museum was, nobody can find the Alden Museum.
Right.
So we put I don't know if it's helped.
But you know, how the state highway, there's sign says, you know, advertise, you know, restaurants and stuff. Could we do something like that and then advertise on that sign, farmer's market or some businesses that usually rent a venue all the time.
What we've done in the past, and this was an agreement with the downtown Lake Jackson businesses, was we allowed them to put in signs at the entrance, that they maintain those with business names. And that fell to the wayside. That's something that could possibly be resurrected again,
Right.
to where there would be an agreement that it could be done. We did that, so it's gotta be, I would assume it was acceptable then.
Yeah, still there. I mean, they should not have been,
Is there
and
one?
still be in the
There,
ordinance.
I don't know if they're there anymore. I haven't.
No,
No, the signs are not there, but it might be still in the ordinance.
No, there's nothing
I
there.
don't think that's an ordinance, but,
Yeah, it's not, I
that
don't,
was just a thing that happened.
And that could be a changeable thing, you know, if farmer's market.
When I was a
It was
baby.
temporary. I mean, I remember we did say that we would change everything. You know, we tried to make better street signs and stuff, so it was easy way markers.
Yeah, they would have wooden markers.
Yes, sir.
This is my husband. I don't know if he's also co-owner of it. Does he need to introduce himself before he speaks
Yes.
as well?
Yeah.
Or can
Yes.
it just be me?
I'm Dylan Brock, live at 302 Caladium. Just a question because I was listening to the on and off premise signs and banners. So I know that for the the summer concert series that is at the Civic
Right.
Center at the Veterans Plaza. There's a banner in front of the police department
Right.
that is right. So is that considered on or off? So
So
if it's a city,
so we keep on city property, and so the city property is not subdivided. It's all one big municipal complex.
that block.
okay. So,
So
even
it's-
if we rented, so even though we're renting like a city venue, that doesn't count, even though it's not subdivided.
It's not, the venue you're renting is just like if you said you're renting Jasmine Park. It's not a part of this complex. We're saying that we're allowed to put that sign up because it's part of this complex, the Civic Center is. So if you have an event at Civic Center, if we're having events at Civic Center, we were doing that. But that is going away. The- As soon as we have the marquee there, you won't see those signs there anymore.
But once the marquee is built, you'll be able to use the marquee. But the marquee's gonna be in front of the Civic Center. And so
Right.
you'd be advertising the market, the
After we've
farmer's
already
market on on South Parking Place.
Right.
Would they be able to do that? Advertise something as,
Yeah, anybody who rents the Civic Center,
right,
Can
but not
you-
the south parking place.
yes,
entrance. You could
anybody who is even renting South Parking Place will be able to use the
City
Civic
venue.
Or
market.
Jasmine Hall or anything.
Okay.
We have it tied to the Civic Center. This is one, because it's so, so close. Jasmine Hall, I
That
don't
doesn't
know.
make
That
sense.
would,
That doesn't make sense.
No, that
Why would
doesn't
you
make
allow
sense.
that and not allow him
Yeah.
to do that now? I
And
mean,
the only time that we allow that sign to be rented is if you're renting at the Civic Center or if it's a city event. We couldn't sell that to someone, just for advertisement.
Can we haven't really discussed that heavily, since
too,
we,
you don't.
we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get to the marquee.
Right.
The marquee's actually there to put in guidelines.
Yeah,
but-
we just have to make sure that it doesn't become an off-premise sign.
Right.
That's,
That's-
I don't think you could put South Parking Place.
Yeah, I don't
So
think,
if
don't
the
think
city
you
is
can.
gonna rent out this venue, what can we do to make it a better rental in terms of advertising and directions?
right now, what we can do is, and I've requested, is that when everybody rents the venue, is they'll get a map, if they're not getting already, that shows them where they can place signage. And right now, we're saying signage can be placed here, and it can be placed over here, and along, the sidewalk, if they want to do that, inside the venue area. But that's the only places that we would allow, currently would allow that signage to occur and stay in accordance with the current
You can get you one of those blow-up things that stick out. You can see it from
The
332.
used car dealership guys that do that.
Like the
inflatable inflating tube man?
Yeah. I mean, you can see it from everywhere.
Well, I did not receive a map of those two locations that it could be placed. I was told I could not, so.
Yeah, well, eventually, I've requested that as for clarification. And so
Better than nothing.
you'll be getting that. And, I mean, we can also, you know, again, when we talked the first Saturday that you were over there, that's what I was thinking is, if we allow that, we need to provide mappage. And again, it would allow you different places where you could put it, you know.
So when's the
Inside.
next farmer's market?
This Saturday.
This coming Saturday?
Yes, ma'am.
Would that type of map be something that could be in place by then and provided to them? Tomorrow?
Yeah, that's easy, for us, to do, so the next renter, you know, knows where they can put their signs, and that helps us where, you know, we don't wanna come in on a Saturday either and tell a renter, you know, you can't put your signs. We have that even happen at the Civic Center. They'll put the signs on the highway, and we're telling them and that's in the rental agreement.
Yeah.
And we're telling you gotta take them down,
And campaign signs.
and campaign signs as
And
well.
we're restricted on where you can put them there, so, too.
Yes.
Yeah, but, anyway,
Would that help? To have that information?
Those two intersections would help, that'd be great.
Okay.
Better than nothing else.
It was better than nothing.
and
So-
also on the maps, I guess, is, we need to define what size they can put out. If it's big, little, small, whatever. So that's clear to everybody what they can put out there.
We don't have we don't have a definition. They can put any
Well,
size. We
it's, I thought it was by speed limit. That's the
don't,
sign.
not for a temporary sign. I guess I'd have to go back and look, Travis, we'd have to go back and look at the, we'd probably try to follow the banner guidelines and see what those are.
Okay.
If there's a size limit, I don't know.
But anyway, when you brought the request, originally when I met you on that Saturday, first Saturday you were out there, moved out there and stuff, and then since then, you know, I've talked to Modesta a few times, and to see if there's some ways that we could come up with some kind of solution. You know, I even brought up the deal of doing the banner across Oak Drive, but again, that becomes an off-premises sign. And so again, we'd have to open up the sign ordinance to allow that. And then you'd get into the issue of, you know, how do you manage that? Is it first come, first serve? So I know Clute does it, and I don't know how they manage theirs. The Clute has their banner sign too, that goes across the street over there on Main Street or Dixie Drive.
It would allow snipe signs as well, so.
Yeah. But,
Does anybody know what size the signs are that are currently whenever they're posted for like the?
That's what he was saying, that there's
We
not
don't
a
know what
definition of
size.
that.
Okay.
We'll look tomorrow and see if there's a size
Okay.
restriction. I would say, most likely, what we'll try to do, if there is a size, we'll probably hold you up to whatever the requirements are for banners.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Anything else, guys?
Thank you.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
thanks. Yep. Okay, so we can move on to,
Wait,
sorry,
someone's
go ahead.
coming.
Sorry.
Good evening, Jeff Gilbert, 19 Heritage Oak Court. Member of Planning Commission since 2007 with the exception of 1 year, so, or gosh, maybe it's longer than that. This just kind of reminded me, we're from the government and we're here to help. That's what this kind of, and I want to know, and I appreciate, because I told them, you know, look at the sign ordinance. I've looked at it. We talk about it all the time in planners. The farmer's market is an asset to the city. Not an asset necessarily, yes, they have a business and it's an asset to them, but it's an asset to the city. I sat through so many meetings on Planning Commission when we talked about how wonderful it's going to be when we can use that pavilion built with tax dollars to provide something for the city. Yes, I am an attorney, but I'm not, you know, is this a government thing because of the way the ordinance is written, or is it state law?
Oh, that's state law where we can't make special rules to be in the marketplace.
Well, it's so funny because governments do so many things that private entities can't do. So I was just wondering, that's why I want to get clarification. I think whether, you know, and the one thing I disagreed with Travis, and I'm friends with them. I actually was honored to perform their wedding. I've known them since I did jail duty for the city when I met Travis when he was a police officer here. I just want to come up with solutions, not remind us of why we can't do things. Because my thing is this, and I don't want it to be like the Peach Street Market in Angleton where you see the signs up all the time. I work in Angleton, I'm city judge in Angleton, that's just too much. But it just seems sad to me that we can't come up, whether it's for them or another thing, for something that is, frankly, I don't like the idea of signs for somebody's wedding here. I mean, the farmer's market is a unique business. I guess we set it up to be a business to do it, but it's like, it's for the city is the way I view it. It is a time where we as citizens come out and enjoy seeing one another. That's what I love. Gosh, everybody sitting on this stage I've seen at the farmer's market, and sometimes I don't see you for months because I don't come every second Saturday. So I just want to say, I appreciate your listening to him. I find it, I'm proud that I live in a city where he was allowed to be heard. I was a little bothered that he was called to tell that there would be a, staff's opposed. I said, well, go. Staff's opposed. That's what they do. Because that's what the ordinance is written. I wanted him to be heard. I want you to listen, and because I always find a solution. And so maybe we start working for solutions, not just for them, but for the city venues. I don't know. The marquee thing is going to be great when it works, but that pavilion's awesome. And I don't know, are they the only people who ever rent it? The farmer's market, whether it's the prior owner or the current owner?
I'd have to defer to Robin. Robin could probably tell us
'Cause
who else rents it.
I got confused when they moved it to the Civic Center during the cold weather
Right.
and the hot weather, because I kept showing up at South Parking Place and it wasn't there, and I'd drive away. Because guess what? We don't have any signs around telling people where the darn farmer's market is on the second Saturday.
Point.
Well,
And if you're not Facebook literate or get their reminders, you don't know. So all I want to say is I appreciate your listening to them. I'm an old guy. These guys are young, and they're going to be here in our community, and I would like to figure out how we can make it work. And it may be over today, but let's work towards finding a solution to figure out what we can do. And if we have to tweak the sign ordinance, I know you hate realtor signs going into subdivisions. You and I have been on planning commission between your forays onto council for over a decade, and I hate them too. And you know how I hate neon signs. So I appreciate your listening to them, and I just want you to know that I came here to support them coming to council and being heard. And I appreciate the staff trying to work with them and come up with solutions, even if there were none to be found. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
okay, any other comments? All right, so we'll move on to, item 2 has been moved to December 20th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
By request of the, Mr. Luna. He's out of town. And we're
Item
gonna
2
move on
has
to-
been removed?
Do what?
Item 2 has been removed.
Yes, it's moved to
Postponed.
December 20th. Item 3 is discuss the dedication and naming of the police department building. Chief, give it up.
Good evening. So this is a follow-up to a discussion we had at a prior meeting. When considering whether the building could be named for someone, we had the question of the plaque that's there between the old fire station, which is now court, and the police department as it exists now. In the research that Sally helped with and Alice helped with, we didn't find anything in the records of the city that said the building was ever named for an individual. And that's kind of where we stood there.
Okay.
It's clear to do so, I guess, if we so choose.
Well, this is, and again, this request to name the police department building was a request that Councilman John Baker came to me about whenever I was talking about dedicating some other buildings. So, John, if you want to talk about it or not? Or do you want to wait, or,
I still like to make the motion.
we'll
If
talk
we
about what
could.
you want to do, and then we'll go from there. If you're prepared to do that, that's all I'm saying.
I wasn't at the time, I didn't know we was gonna talk about it, but, I would like to, present this and honor, P.C. Miller, the great job that he done for our city. Also like we're doing for the, what is that, the Civic Center?
Civic Center for Mayor Williams.
For Mayor William, and maybe we can do it, both together and, naming the building after him.
It could, some of the things PC, you were telling me about PC did. I mean, PC was an innovator in bringing training, elevating
Yes, sir.
training for the police department, and that was a big priority for him. So I know that was an important thing for you. And also, he brought diversity into the PD also
Yes, he
by
did.
bringing you in. So he was kind of on the leading edge, from what I can understand.
He was, and for my
Or,
2
yeah.
cents, which I was asked for at the time, is, coming in, doing innovative things and doing good things for the department for a short period of time, and then and out. There's been, 8 chiefs before me at the police department, but PC and Cap Brown were the longest head of agencies by far for this agency. I think Cap Brown was started as a marshal. At some point, his position was changed to chief, I believe. And he was there maybe 18 years and PC for 17. I'll tell you, just to hang in there that long,
As a chief.
It's
you
achievement.
get a little bit for that. But he did. PC kind of brought investigations. He was an investigator at heart, up to date, and got ahead of the game at the police department when he was there.
And he brought us into the 21st century. He brought us into the videos, and when we didn't have videos, we had them mounted. This big camera on
On the
the
dash.
back of
The dash.
the back.
And I think his
Patrol cars.
expectations for investigating cases beyond just the surface, you take a report, talk to a few people. If that didn't work out, sometimes that was put aside because you didn't have personnel designated to following those things up. Recent events will tell you how crucial that is. But for PC, he did things like categorizing evidence and bringing in, I know we credit Ramaka a lot for, at the very beginning of his term as chief, we moved over to our current OSSI. But that was in talks and plan also as a means of following up cases effectively with the use of our dashboard in that system. And that's one of the reasons we went to it. It wasn't implemented until after he was left, but that was certainly discussion, part of his plan. And aside from that, as a person of character in this community, I think PC is outstanding.
As soft-spoken as he is, you would never think he'd be a police chief, because I met him back in 1970s early. And,
If you find yourself in his office for good reason,
He wouldn't be
sometimes I say, he'll
No,
get
I'm
his
just
point
saying,
across.
as a,
But he
you
is,
know,
he's very
very soft.
naturally gentle
I definitely
person.
I've been on both sides.
Great man. I have all the respect in the world for him, so.
Thank you, Chief.
That's good. Anybody else comment on it? Again, I would be in support of moving forward with something like this, but I would need a motion to.
I'd like to make the motion to name the police station after P.C. Miller.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from anybody on council first? Audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And we'll make that happen as timely as we can. I know on the Civic Center, we're waiting for the marquee to come in for that to happen. And, but we'll have to just see how quickly we can move on this one too. Name the building. Who's second? That was Buell, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to item 4, approve submittal of 2022 request for road construction projects with Brazoria County, Modesto.
So,
In the consent agenda, you approved our annual agreement with the county, our interlocal agreement. And part of that, each year, the county asks us for projects that they are asking cities, do you need help or participation? And usually this is, regarding asphalt, roads. This year, we budgeted for 4 projects that we'd like to ask them for help. And then we have a 5th one that is not budgeted at this time. But I think we would like to put it on the list because their list is really a 1-year list. So it may spill over into the next budget year, or we may, at some point in time, discuss our American Relief Funds. The projects that are budgeted are the Dunbar Pavilion parking lot, the Pee Wee parking lot, the Wilderness parking lot, and the Monica Brown Trail. Those are all out of the half set. We have budgeted for the full amount, which would pay for the asphalt and the contractor. So if the county can help us on any of those, that our dollars would stretch further on those, because they do not charge us their labor and material. I mean, we pay labor and equipment, we pay for the material there. So we could stretch our dollars further if they could take any of these other projects. The Southern Oaks Drive, we've had a discussion with Commissioner Payne. He's looked at, it's not the full Southern Oaks, but it is a portion of it. I'd say it's practically maybe if you could bisect it. His estimate is $100,000 of material, and they think they could take it on. So we could put this on the list, with a caveat of telling Commissioner Payne, right now we don't have the funds, we're looking for funds, and to see if those are. And then as it gets closer and if we can't find some, then we could ask them to pull the trigger. But right now it's not budgeted.
So when they're doing Southern Oaks, could they also do the part of the Suggs Field by Willow? That entrance to the Suggs Field where the Willow is in very bad shape.
We could look at that. We could always ask them to do that. If we couldn't get that into if we can't get Southern Oaks in, we could see if that could help with the parking lot. Because again, we think that our dollars will go further, so that may be, then we could put that on the list as a separate item since I'm guessing.
It's not a very big spot.
It's probably pretty small, so.
And then you could use a lot, the Suggs Field gets used a lot, so.
We could probably cover that with the savings that we were going to realize on the other ones. So we could add that as a separate project. And that's really why we wanted to have this on, the discussion. Yeah.
That's the entrance on Willow Drive? Or?
Yeah, Willow Drive. Right, there used to be that dance place on the
Right.
building that's vacant now, and that,
So it's a second entrance to the.
yeah, next to Mrs.
parking lot.
Boggs,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
old Mrs. Boggs nurse.
Okay, so we could add that to the list in the motion, I guess, whenever, if somebody wants to do that. We want an approval, right, to submit?
Yes, for the projects, and then Sal's office will come back with finalizing the details on the sheet. As you can see, we've left the limits and the length and the width off. We'll fill those in if we agree to the street or project location. So we could add that entrance in there.
Are like bridges, they're not considered roads?
These are, I know where you're going on that.
What's the county road anyway?
We could put that on there to start discussion for grins and giggles, maybe.
Well, to me, that's the county road 288, Old English.
But, Sal, I did have that question. I've always considered this as we were submitting to them for asphalt construction project. Has it ever been anything more? I think that discussion will have to happen.
That's a separate one.
We'll be separate.
Yeah, this
think
is,
we
this
should
is
just
always,
check.
this has always been for
Yeah.
asphalt. Yeah.
We should not ask, just put it in there and
Yeah.
see what they say.
Yeah, I can get a phone call now.
Well, all they can say is no.
Yeah, and probably more words than that. But anyway, so you're asking for approval for these items with the caveat of.
With the caveat,
project will-
the Southern Oaks Drive is definitely not budgeted at $100,000. We'll have to start looking for money and then seeing, and coming back with council for a recommendation.
That could be, but again, that could be part of next year's budget too.
It could, yeah, because I really,
New quarter, new budget.
yeah, their deadline to us is December 15th, and I really think it's for like a year.
It is. Yeah, because whenever I talked to him first time about it, and he went and did the numbers, he said that, you know, the earliest they could get to it would be, at that time would have been, this time this year. And, he said, but really, it wasn't on their plan, so it was,
Right.
you know, and I said, well, we don't have the budget for it anyway. We just want mainly to find out what the cost would be so we can get it on the plan. So at least it'll put this on their radar. And like you said, you'll put the caveat of is we don't have the funding that, and if it would happen, it would be happening at the end of the year, or a new fiscal year.
October 1
Yeah,
of next
October
year.
fiscal year. Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Anybody from the audience? All right, so, need to take some action on this. You're looking for approval?
Approval, and then I hear that for the addition, to add, the entrance into Sykesville
From
off of
Willow.
Willow.
Right. Okay. So somebody wants to make a motion?
I move for approval for submittal of the 2022 request for road construction projects with Brazoria County with this list.
Second.
Okay, and again, that's with the addition of the,
Entrance
that
to
we
the-
just talked about.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, item 5 is to discuss how mayoral vacancies should be filled. I don't know going anywhere anytime soon, but never know what's gonna happen. There's always a beer truck out there, so.
Never know.
Yeah. So, we were supposed to get some feedback, back to Sherry. Did you get any?
I received 1/6.
1/6?
I thought you said to
So,
bring it tonight.
Okay,
I
fine.
said you can bring it, I said, you know, think about it
Yeah,
and you can
okay.
bring it tonight. The mayor sent me his and it said, that he would like mainly to have it filled by election, but if it's gonna be too long until the next available election to fill it with a city council person or a past mayor of the city, if they are not inclined to run for office. So that's suggestion 1.
So I just have a question. Isn't that what Mayor Pro Tem is supposed to do?
Yes, the mayor pro tem takes the mayor's place during a temporary absence, and so the question is, how long do you think the mayor pro tem should be there in the place? If you want, that's a perfectly valid
I mean, normally in other cities or larger cities even, that's what the Mayor Pro Tem is, duties are to assign and fill the seat for, in case the mayor is incapacitated.
Yes, so we don't, well, maybe we spell it out and I don't know, but, so that's a valid suggestion also, just to have the mayor pro tem, take the mayor's place, but then do you want his place, that person's place filled, or leave that vacant until
But
the
that would be
next
filled
election?
under council guidelines, so the council seat would be vacant, and then you would follow the council vacancy
Which is already in the charter review.
if it's
Yes.
already in the charter review.
That's in the charter review, so let me ask you this though, so, Mayor Pro Tem Buster gets moved into the mayor's spot, and at the next election, the mayor's spot will be filled, but in the meantime, you fill Buster's spot, and now he doesn't have a place.
doesn't have a place to go. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if he was,
You would leave the spot,
Yeah,
you
you're
would
right.
leave that spot open if
I
he's
would-
filling it.
yeah.
Well, I
In
mean,
my
didn't-
mind, he's still on council, but filling the role of the mayor.
Right, and didn't that really just happen when Mayor Rosnowski went from council to mayor back in November? It wasn't until June that empty council seat was filled.
That's because we chose to do it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the
And we-
past, what we've done is we've appointed somebody,
Right.
within 30 days.
So we'd always have an election going in May, either odd or even. So we could always sort of fill the mayoral slot on that election,
But you
even
do-
if it's just for 1 year, 1 year left versus
For
2.
completing the term.
Complete term versus, correct. And you would never have more than a year without, if you died on the day after you got elected.
won the lottery and moved, let's do that one.
Yeah,
the lottery moved.
I'm assuming the beer truck had,
Fun discussion.
the beer truck. He got hit by a beer truck, that's a good way to go.
Vote for the lottery.
Yeah, whenever I put my suggestion in is actually I said that, where is it started? If a vacancy should occur for mayor, 30 days, within 30 days of a special election date, which is May or November, we can have two without requesting a special election. The council may set the election for the next date following the impending special. In other words, if there's just 30 days until May, and
The mayor goes.
Win the
away.
lottery.
go away, is that council, what I'm saying here is council could say is, it's too quick to try to get somebody to file and run and get elected in that 30 days. And so you would move that election for that mayor to November instead of May.
Makes sense.
That would be an option. That would
And have-
allow people to be able to campaign or do everything else and stuff like that. And so, and then if the vacancy of the office of mayor occurs and at a date greater than 45 days of the first available election date, the city council shall appoint a member of city council to the office or appoint a past mayor to city council, in the role if they will agree not to run. And that's basically a handshake agreement because they could decide to run. There's
Yeah.
nothing would stop them from
So
running.
you're saying point a city council member so you can look over the mayor pro tem and point someone else?
Well, and I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say, as the
No,
way
I'm
that,
just-
the way that the mayor pro tem is chosen here, that might not be a bad thing, because you may have a less experienced mayor pro tem than you have experience
Right.
on the council, so
But
it
if you
may be
would
good.
go that route, then you'd have to change the way you appoint mayor pro
Mayor
tem.
pro tem, be a whole other.
If you
Yeah.
go,
Worms.
if you go the route of that the mayor pro tem takes over the role, yes, we would probably have to change that because again, there are situations where you will have a junior person or new person on council that could end up mayor pro tem the way we selected
Right.
today.
You know, when I was first elected to the council, I was a mayor pro tem the following year.
Right.
And if I had to fulfill the duties of mayor, I would be deer in the headlights, you
Right.
know.
So
and-
was
And that, and that's what I'm
So,
saying.
you know, that would not be a good situation.
Right.
The first
So-
time around.
So, and, yeah, so I think it's, and again, that's why I suggested is that council would have the option of selecting anybody that's on council to fill that role as mayor. And that way you could have that discussion and decide who would be the best person to fill the role. at the
But then it's unfair
As
for the mayor
elected,
pro
not
tem though.
as-
Because
as-
that's,
as-
the
Well-
definition of mayor pro tem is, you know, it's just,
But again, you still have the option of selecting the mayor pro
Yeah,
tem. The mayor pro tem may sit there and say, I don't want it.
It
Right.
just allows you more
Flexibility.
flexibility.
yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just, it's kind of awkward, you know, and that's,
I'm just telling you, if I were mayor pro tem at this point and something, Mayor Rosnowski won the lottery, I don't think I would be the person that should step into the role of mayor. It should be a more experienced.
well, right now, if we got hit by a
council
beer
member.
truck, it has to be a small truck. So only does some damage, not complete damage.
Just,
when-
I'll just be a speed bump.
Oh, man.
I want to make sure
We
when we say step into the role, we're meaning like still on council but acting as mayor, not
If they were, if it was a,
Becoming
ma-
the mayor.
yeah, it was.
Mayor pro
I
tem.
think the thing is
Right.
that even if it's a mayor pro tem or the council, it was a good thing that's brought up is that you can't ask that member, mayor pro tem or council to give up his seat.
right.
Because once, especially if he has additional time in his term, he would not have a place to go back if we fill that slot. So you either,
agree.
if you move them into mayor slot, then you don't backfill the council seat.
Well,
That's-
doesn't it,
council stays open.
doesn't it all stem to win this
Well, that's why the 45 and 30 day type stuff.
when this episode happens? I mean,
Yeah. Episode.
If I can
I
add,
think we're gonna, if this today.
yeah, we are.
if I can add one item, and I don't know if it will build any confidence, all of you are qualified to be mayor.
That's
And
right,
I
'cause
use
we're
beer
elected-
truck because I know if Gerald wins the lottery, he's not going to stop being a mayor.
Well, there
He's
might
still
be a
there.
time, there might be a time.
We just done your
There might be a
evaluation.
time.
Yeah, I already does it for free.
So does anybody else have some suggestions to give to Sherry? Because she asked for suggestions or ideas.
I mean, I like the
I like
suggestion.
timing suggestion,
I agree.
The timing suggestion that the mayor came up with, okay.
but I also like the suggestion of allowing council some flexibility, that it doesn't, it could be mayor pro tem, but not necessarily. That way you don't have to redo the way you choose mayor pro tem.
Right.
I really don't, the timeframe really doesn't bother me. The thing that really concerns me is appointment, just, I mean, because you were at least to be, I think it ought to be elected by the city council members. like me, I was appointed because I was the last one that did it 5 years ago. Well, that doesn't make me qualified to be mayor pro tem, but, you know, that's the way I look at it.
So you're talking about the role of mayor pro tem?
No, I'm talking about the role of.
Filling in for mayor?
For mayor,
Okay.
just because I'm,
Mayor.
just using it for example.
Yeah.
I'm going on my 8th year, so I'm more senior than you. If something happened, okay, me, no, that doesn't mean I ought to be pushed into it. I think it ought to be elected by council members. However way you do it, ex-mayor or a council member or somebody off the street, it ought to be elected by the council member. That's my opinion.
Now, I don't like the elected off the street. I do think you should have to have some sort of experience, and we talked about that before. It needs to be a
But
mayor.
they don't have to be elected, they could run, they
Right.
don't have to be elected, but
Right.
my example is, it ought to be elected by the city council.
And I-
Okay,
and I-
so what, I'm hearing is, and the mayor pretty much has it, appoint a current member of city council or appoint a past mayor who doesn't wanna run.
Elected by council.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean-
appoint means city council
Well,
makes the
you
decision.
appointed me because I was the least one there, so,
Yeah, and everyone agreed.
okay.
And that, and so I will, make a point, mean that city council appoints.
I'm sure
There you
you'll,
go, there you go.
Yeah, with
sure
the
you'll
added
plead.
benefit of, well, unless I guess me and Gerald both get hit by a truck at the same time, but I was gonna say, it would be 5, so you'd have 3-2, you never have any hangups, you never have any, right? That's a reasonable way to do it, I think.
There's more than one brand of beer, you know.
Back to back.
There's so many jokes in my head.
So-
You know, Bill never held them back. You should let
Bill
him
never
fly.
held that.
Just stay away from the worst.
I'm about to bring up the drone. Boom, boom.
I can't do that.
So, do we really need to have that requirement that if we pick a past mayor, that he does not want to run for the slot? Maybe, is that part necessary?
Well, they'll be the incumbent at that point, and it gives them an advantage over anybody else who would want to run.
So, I mean, I do better when I'm in my office writing things down and things coming to me, but I'm thinking that that shouldn't be part of the charter provision, but that should be an agreement among council when it happens.
when they talk to the people, the candidates.
Because it's not enforceable anyway. I mean, you can,
It's not,
Yeah.
it's
you know,
not
I mean,
really.
It's really
and
not.
so I just
Okay,
hate
So
to,
just strike that off with a suggestion then for
It
the
happen all
charter.
the time. They say they're not gonna run, they end up
And
running.
then they end up loving. I don't think Tom Selleck.
Okay.
Tom Selleck's is like.
So you got enough to work with, Sherry?
Yes, you've given me plenty, thank you.
All right. If we can, we'll move on to item 6, to discuss and consider amendment to the health inspection policy. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've had discussions recently in regards to how to better provide compliance in our restaurants as far as health inspections are concerned. While we meet the state minimum standards for inspecting twice per year, council does have some concerns that perhaps some establishments may need additional support in keeping their establishments up and running. So with the council of staff and reviewing this with city management, we would propose the following inspection protocol and policy be put into place, which would allow us to identify by score, using the existing scoring patterns and formula and the existing TFER inspection sheet, the ability to say this restaurant meets above that standard, these restaurants need additional support. And that additional support would be in the form of food establishments that score 78 and above. We would just continue on with that second inspection within the second part of the year, keeping that 2 per year inspection schedule. Excuse me. Any food establishment scoring below 78 would be placed on an improvement track, meaning we would come back within the next 3 months to do a follow-up inspection. And if they score below a 68, we would put them on an improvement track, meaning we would come back within the next 1 month. Again, providing opportunity for the establishment to make any corrections to those deficiencies, because any serious health situation would have to be dealt with before they could resume operation, but they would not be given a new rating with that follow-up inspection. If a food establishment scores below 78 for 2 consecutive months, we would provide staff training for them using our existing health inspecting staff. And what that would really look like is we'll come in, meet with management, meet with staff at their option for probably an hour, hour and a half, and walk over what it is we're looking for, proper food handling, and provide a refresher update as to what the TFR standards are for their staff to help them make those improvements. If we find that they score below the 78 for a 3rd consecutive month, we would have the management and staff retake their Texas food handler and food manager training and show that they've completed the training, at which time there should be no reason why they would have a 4th inspection below that 78.
And the training doesn't mean that they have to retake the test.
No.
It just means that they have to, I guess.
They're gonna
there's
invest the
probably a video
time.
requirement and stuff. for
Yeah,
their
they're gonna
training.
have to invest the time involved to go back through that as a refresher.
So what happens if they say that that's not a state requirement, that I have to retake this training? And we say, well, we're gonna require it, what's,
Well, at that point, we could have the ability, I would believe, to revoke a health license.
okay,
Meaning that they would not legally be able to operate.
okay.
I mean, they've just clearly shown that, I mean, they have the certification, it's just not,
Didn't stick.
it's not sinking in.
So
Yeah.
help me understand
Yes, sir.
how this would prevent what we are currently seeing is happening in restaurants is you go for right now we're on every 6 months. So
Yes,
we
sir.
inspected it 6 months ago, everything was great. Then next time you go and 6 months later, and at that point, they are such in bad shape, they have to be shut down. So again, my thinking on that is, and correct me if I'm flawlessly wrong thinking on this. They didn't get that way in one day or 1 week or 1 month. So they're progressively declining to the point they are so bad they have to be shut down. So my one objective in this, when I first asked for this, was somehow to prevent that from happening. So our residents are not eating food from an establishment. It has been in a poor shape or getting to that point in 6 months. It took to get there. So I'm looking for something preventative, not reactive to when finding them in violation, that we don't get to that point that we have to shut them down.
We do provide a annual training for restaurant managers to go over what the inspection protocols are, what the TFR rules are, and remind them of their obligation to not be complacent in the maintenance and in care of their restaurant, including food handling safety. But as far as being proactive, there really is no other way than to put bodies in the restaurants to do the inspections, but we're meeting the state minimum as it is. What we're saying with this policy is that if you can't maintain the cleanliness of the establishment or the safety of the food, then we are going to put you on a schedule to where we're in your restaurant more often. However, we can't just assume that every restaurant is a bad player.
No, you're not,
and every
right.
restaurant needs to have additional inspections without first having some sort of baseline that we can move off of.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking for the same process that you're talking about, somehow educate them. There's a lot of turnover out there because, people are it's hard to find people to work. So the turnover is, and even in the management area, is a huge turnover.
Right, but that's
Yeah.
not the city government role to regulate that. That is the business owner and the restaurant's role to regulate that. And then we just oversee that they're doing it.
Right, so
That's not our role.
you're right, but it's our role to make sure that the health and safety of our citizens is.
It is, but we're already doing that. We're already meeting the state requirements.
So you okay with this, when you go to a restaurant today and they're such a bad shape and they didn't get there overnight? So that process has been
but
happening for a while.
I'm confident in our health department that they have maintained the state requirements and that if they were bad 6 months ago, somebody looked at them and said, hey, you need to bring it up to the standard.
So
Yeah,
one
but
of
the current ones were good 6 months ago, right? So in 6 months they deteriorated. So how is our process that we continue to do inspection every 6 months is gonna change that?
Well, again,
So-
it's not every 6 months. It's within we inspect twice a year. So if you go back and look at some of the data, we had some restaurants where we went and we visited them, we inspected them in June, and then we were back there inspecting them in August. That may have been because we had a complaint, or it's because that was an opportunity. They were visiting the restaurant next door, so they went ahead and did that one at the same time. So there is a random process out there. Again, we don't publish when we're going to inspect anybody. All they know is that they've had one inspection and that they're going to have another inspection sometime the rest of the year. So that is how it's random, and that's how we take care of it. And it goes back to, as far as a business goes, as a business, if they want to operate in the city of Lake Jackson, they have to maintain a clean facility. And if what we're setting up here is a program that is if they repeatedly, don't meet the mark, they're going to get some help to a point where if they don't improve, we'll close them down.
Let's try that. Let's try to see how if you see next year we're not shutting down 10 restaurants in, short period of time, then hopefully that's working. So let's try that.
Once again, we did close a number of restaurants this year for various reasons, several of which were food related and sanitation related, but several of them had to do with building issues that they were having, roof, HVAC systems, and the like. We can definitely, our suggestion would be to have us use this policy moving forward, and we can come back and report during the quarterly updates as to how this is working, at which time maybe it needs to be adjusted.
And another outlier in the data is that Leslie is a new inspector, and she's known for being very fine by the book. And
That's a good thing.
And so,
Nothing bad about that.
again, so you would see that, and again, I've gotten that information when I've talked to other people, restaurant owners are saying that, that she is by the book, more so than they've seen in the past. And so that's a good thing that we want to happen, but again, it's an outlet, it does have some impact on the data that you're looking at, because she may be a little bit more stringent on requirements, and again, within the book, following the book, and closing a business down for a period of time for them to fix their problem within 24 hours.
Which I would also like to say along the lines of that is that was our responsibility, is to make sure our inspectors were by the book. So that wasn't the restaurant's faults that they were allowed to be lax in whatever capacity. So that was.
Well,
that was on the city.
y'all's department is not, objective is not to close these places
No.
down.
No.
Yeah, you let them know that we're serious about it, and if they don't comply with what y'all want or follow the rules, that can happen. Let them know and see these people coming in that we're serious about it, and they're gonna keep their place clean.
Well, even when we do.
I mean, if you threaten them, like I said the other day, you threaten them and don't ever do anything about it,
Right.
Ours is, even when we have to close a restaurant down, is to try to assist them. I mean,
Right.
we stay open, contact with them for 24 hours a day. Our intent is to try to get them open back as quick as possible. Sometimes there's a mechanical condition that they're caught by surprise, and they're trying to fix it as quick as possible, so we're trying to make ourselves available. It could be air conditioning failure or something, or leaking
Water
into a
heater or
food
whatever.
area, water and stuff, or they have a hole in the roof, and so we're trying to make ourselves available. They've got to get somebody to repair it, but we can't leave them open, but we're trying to get them open back as quick as possible. Sometimes they think that they're.
When you keep saying rat droppings and temperature in the icebox not in the right thing, that's another matter.
Right.
And that's really what this component will help on the education side, on those health concerns.
Ongoing.
The facilities, on the facility failure side, sometimes those things, catch us by surprise. We get caught surprised on ourselves, even today.
Mr. Walton?
Yes, ma'am.
If we're to implement this, how would this be communicated to the businesses, and what would the time frame be where we got rolling on this?
We
Or
would,
this be the
we would
standard?
anticipate implementing this come January 1st, in which case we can formulate.
quickly.
Yes, ma'am, we can formulate a letter and document outlining how this process would work, and then we would make visits to the various establishments to inform the management, answer any questions that they may have on site.
So you will let them know what's going on?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. But I did want to just make note of in regards to our inspection protocols. We do inspect by the written statutes and written standards. It's never the purview of our inspectors to pull things out of thin air, to say this is how I want to see it, or to offer any suggestions as to how it must be fixed. We work with the establishment to make sure that whatever solutions are presented are solutions that they come up with. We may give some input as to whether or not that meets the standard, or we may say another establishment does it this way, but we never say it must be done this way. We do that across the board through all of our inspections in our department, from restaurants down through buildings. But we inspect it to a standard that can be backed up by written statute and defensible should it be challenged.
All right, so this is an update to us, so there's no action to take.
Yes, so if there's no disagreement, we will move forward with this internal guideline and then start notifying the restaurants that this is how we'll start doing inspections. The
Mr.
added
Walton, thank you
inspections.
for your work on this. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Singhania.
Okay.
Thank you, council.
All right. Move on to item 7, to discuss whether the ordinance that regulates parking in residential yards should be repealed. This was requested by Councilwoman Rhonda Seth and for a city resident, Mike Walls. Mike is here. So if Mike, you want to talk?
Sure.
And you'll have to give name and address. And
Michael Walls, 59 Southernwood Court. So yeah, I remember when this came about, 2017, 2018, the first go around, and then I read about at the previous council meeting that this was an item of discussion about, how to work with enforcement. What I'm here asking for is just repeal of the ordinance altogether. I think I emailed each one of you guys an email with a list of bullet points, so I won't bore you to death by reading through all of them since I already sent you guys an email on that. But I think my biggest point of concern is just private property rights in general. The city, I was born here, I'm 45 years old, so throughout my lifetime has done a really good job of taking care of the city, not meddling in the affairs of private individuals, as much as possible. The big fear is, as we continue to grow, these small little bites out of individual property rights snowball into taking more rights away. We don't have an HOA in the city. We have certain deed restrictions and whatnot. There's not a lot of rights that individuals have outside of their own personal property to begin with in this nation, in this city, in this state. So that's my big picture concern, is just the slow erosion of our individual property rights over time by small ordinances. I think the ordinance means well. I think we all agree that it would, do things that help make the city look nice and make neighborhoods look nice. But at the end of the day, many of these roads are narrow. I've personally had a son who had to park in the street. Some drunken idiot was driving down and totaled his car, And the reason he parked in the street is because I was not able to park in the driveway. I would have had to park him in the grass, and was told that I shouldn't be parking there because I moved shortly after the original ordinance was passed, but that's why he was parked in the street. So that cost me time and money. I also think this is something that I don't know the scope of the problem, how many locations, are having this issue. But I think we could maybe work with individuals one-on-one to try to explain to them why this may be, not in the best interest of the city for them to be parking there. But the other thing is, as someone who invests in real estate, I'm buy small properties and try to help people like my employees who have a hard time affording housing to have a place to live. There's not room for them. You know, they've got larger families, they have kids. You know, when Lake Jackson began, we were a 1 car per household city. Now it is not uncommon to have 4 cars in the driveway. I've got 3 kids, 2 of them drive. My wife and I both have cars. We have 4 cars in the driveway. And I think you could drive around the city and know many driveways would not be able to accommodate 4 vehicles. So, and then for those older homes that can't accommodate that, many of them don't have the money to put into expansion of the driveway, or they just don't have the space. The city regulates how big these driveways can be, and once they're kind of maxed out, where would you put an additional vehicle for someone to get back and forth to school, get back and forth to work? So, given these circumstances, instead of trying to fit this round peg in a square hole of how can we keep people from parking in their yards by different surfaces and things like that, I think it makes more sense to communicate with individuals who are parking in the yards, to talk to them about what are all other alternatives that exist for them, whether it may be parking in the street for a period of time or some type of off-site parking or something like that. So I wasn't going to bore you with going through a bunch of bullet points, but then I started rambling, so.
That's okay. No, that's good. Appreciate your feedback and comments and stuff. You can still stay up there if you want. And Rhonda, you have anything you want to add, or since it's your item?
Well, I mean, there are a number of reasons. This is no hill to die on by any stretch of the imagination. However, I have the same concerns, big picture, of erosion of private property rights. The city of Lake Jackson does restrict a lot of the widths of the streets, the widths of the driveways, how long you can park in front of the street. The state says you can't park on the sidewalk. So there's already a lot of those restrictions, and then I do think this puts an undue burden on those with less income, less property. So I don't think that a blanket ordinance that costs taxpayers money to enforce is necessarily the answer. I'm all for let's regulate less and not more. And this just, the additions to this parking ordinance really just get very particular on what you can and can't do on your private property rights.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just start out, and then, of course, anybody else can add to it. But you do understand that Lake Jackson has always been a master plan community.
Mhm.
And one way that we manage master plan communities is by ordinance and by zoning, are just a few of the tools that we use. And so a lot of those ordinances and zonings do enable us. They do, as you would say, as you're saying, takes away property rights. I would like for you to define what you understand as property rights as a property owner. But at the same time is that we do have easements that are in place, and we do define sidewalk, the size of driveways and so forth. So we have a lot of things that at the end of the day, it all goes toward this master plan of having, and also our vision of our city is that we want to have a place where people can come to work, live, and play. And also have neighborhoods that are nice and enjoyable to come to and aren't unsightly like you do see in other cities. We're not unique as a city as far as putting a restriction on parking in yards. It's just about every city in the state of Texas has. Most cities that I've done research on do have restrictions on parking in yards. Now, what we're saying is we're not restricting you from being able to park in yards. We're saying if you want to or you need to park in your yard, we want you to park on an improved surface. Ms. Seth is saying is that we've gotten very detailed in description of what's acceptable and what's not. Well, the reason why we have to do that is with any ordinance, you have to define what a surface is. And you have to define what a parking space is. So that's what the purpose of this ordinance is, or these recommendations are, is to add clarification that wasn't part of the original ordinance. So again, so that you as a property owner would know that if I'm gonna go buy a vehicle and I need to go buy another vehicle and I would like to park in my yard versus in the street, these are things that I need to do in the city of Lake Jackson to be able to park in my yard. We don't restrict you on the amount of coverage that you do on the parking area that you can do, like some cities, depending on if they're in aquifer areas or so forth, they don't let you, they restrict you on how much of your yard can be parking spaces. We don't. Anything behind 16-foot easement, you could pave and turn into a parking lot.
Really?
But we're not saying you can't do that, but you can do that if you want to do that. And what we did was, again, what the recommendations that we're placing out there is we're giving quite a bit of flexibility. There's some cities, for example, Freeport. Freeport did the same ordinance, similar ordinance at the same time we did, but they require it to be impervious surface. So you have to have a concrete driveway or an asphalt driveway to be able to park in your yard, parking spaces. We're saying you can have crushed stone or concrete or so forth. Now, we did go back and say that it needs to be 3 inches in depth. That's just, again, to be able to build enough base so that the rock that you put there stays there and doesn't become just a mud puddle type deal. So that's why that's there. We originally in the ordinance had boundaries. I mean, we said that if you did put those in, that you had to put boundaries in, borders, and it was just to hold this crushed stone where it was. It doesn't have to be anything unique or terribly expensive to do that. It's just some kind of border to be able to manage that. The other reason why the recommendation says, or stating that, we need borders or some kind of, it could be landscaping or whatever to define that drive, is so that, again, we understand what the parking space is and what is not parking space. So if we get a call from a neighbor that says these people are constantly parking in their yard, we'll go over there, code enforcement can go look at it and see that, no, they're meeting the requirement. There's a boundary, they've got their crushed stone in that boundary, and that's an official approved parking area. So again, we're not putting more restrictions on with these revisions, we're just adding definition, because that was the intent. As far as the scope goes, I was the person that originally brought this request to council. And then as we brought it, other council members said, yeah, they were getting phone calls too.
Right.
And it's widespread. It was a widespread issue. It was during the growth, all the expansion out at Dow and the different facilities that we have the contractors in. First, the contractors came in and they moved into the hotels. Well, then after they were here for a long period of time, they found that they ended up talking to each other. And the next thing you know is we're having people that are subletting rooms in homes, which is against the city ordinance also. But it's a very hard one to manage because the Supreme Court or different higher courts really started saying, well, you can't define what a family unit is. So that's where we started running into issues. So we had to, years ago, we had to adjust even that ordinance. And again, that's a difficult one to manage. So it has made an improvement since it was first initiated. It was approved by this city council. All members except Rhonda wasn't on council at the time. All members approved it. I think it was unanimous, but I may be wrong. I didn't go back and look, but and then we had a grace period to allow people to be able to prepare for the ordinance, the implementation, and we implemented it in January of 2019. Even then, we were very lenient on as we got complaints. Most of the time, it was by complaints that we would take that code enforcement would go out there and talk to people. But we were very lenient at that time, working with people and trying to get, enabling people to be able to convert or to adjust to the ordinance. Again, I've rambled on too.
One of my other concerns that this has created is the safety issues. You've got a lot of street parking. It's going to become an EMS problem. It's going to become a fire problem. It's already a problem with just traffic. I know, for example, on my street on Almond, it's a problem. I've literally had the kid chase the ball out between the cars, So forcing people, do we pick an aesthetic issue or a safety issue?
So a lot of folks, like you said, you sent an email out, we received other emails as well. And one of their thinking is, when they bought homes in Lake Jackson, they knew they were buying a home in a master planned community, and it would have a certain look and certain aesthetics. And if they didn't want any rules or something, they could have lived in the county, and then anybody could have anything next door to them they wanted, and park wherever they wanted, build whatever they wanted. So the reason they bought homes in Lake Jackson was because their expectations was a certain expectation as per our master plan.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's one of the reasons I live in Lake Jackson is for a lot of those things. Most of us have lived here since before 2018 when the ordinance came into place, though. So it did come about fairly recently, and didn't exist before. It does sound like, I mean, I think we all agree it's an aesthetic concern, right? Because boundaries do exist, which are the boundaries of the real estate that I own. I feel like I should be able to park anywhere within those boundaries that I want to. You know, now it's a matter of defining, right, what we think is acceptable from an aesthetic point of view. But most of this master plan community, when it was devised in the 40s, right, was devised around life in the 40s, and life has drastically changed since then. And I go back to, you know, a typical family home, it's not uncommon to see 4 or more vehicles. And to Mayor Rosnovsky's point, there are a lot of ordinances already in place that deal with some of those other root causes, such as multifamily living arrangements and single-family homes, which are already against many of the rules that exist, which I would submit those are some of the things we probably need to be tackling if those are some of the root causes of multiple contractors having big jacked up trucks in the front yards and things like that. What this does harm is somebody like me who's got a kid who's turned 16 and before they go off to college for the next couple of years has no other option but to park in the street, or in my case, park on the, I live in a cul-de-sac, so when my kid did park on the street, I started getting nasty grams from the post office delivery guy because I'm blocking mailboxes because they can't get out and walk 6 feet to, you know, they're not supposed to have to get out of their vehicles. So I was in between a rock and a hard place. You know, do I aesthetically, you know, put more driveway or some type of material in front of my house and lose what little yard I have in my front yard cul-de-sac? Or do I play the truffle shuffle with cars, you know, constantly, right? Not to mention a number of people, especially on Oak Drive over there when you go past, you know, over there kind of on the Linden Lane side, right? There's a number of driveways that would not fit this definition. There's just some long driveways that are there, so you're imposing costs, tens of thousands of dollars for them to be in compliance with this new ordinance, as defines with borders and things like that. I'm thinking of 2 houses in particular over there. So I think given those things, yeah, I think we can tackle some of the root causes of maybe having too many vehicles in front of homes if we were maybe a bit more, you know, could do more. I understand there are legal issues like you're talking about as we define a family these days, but maybe take a look at alternative options, you know, in these situations where we have been lenient with code enforcement and whatnot. You know, how did we resolve those issues? Did they wind up spending money and putting some type of base down or not? So,
To me, you know, listening to you talk and stuff, and you know, the assumption that I'm getting from you is that we haven't looked at all the options, and we haven't looked at options. And we did. We've had the same conversation in 2018 about what kind of impact we were imposing on the residents in the community. The issue that what we're approached with here is there's a situation that the community brought to us, and it was brought to us because it was a situation that they couldn't resolve on their own. A lot of people, you know, you say, well, why can't people just go talk to their neighbor? Most people don't even know who their neighbor is, you know.
but that's not the city's responsibility.
I know, I agree. But, so they go, so if this was just a one-off, just one neighbor or one deal, we probably wouldn't have taken it on. But it was across the city issue. And so that's why we took it on. And so then we have to look at what's best for the greater good of the community versus, you know, just looking at, like I said, we have to look at what's best for the community as overall, again, getting back to the master plan and the aesthetics that people moved into the city and they were expecting as they moved in and they purchased their home. They expected their neighborhood to continue to stay nice. And, you know, and a lot of people that came to us across the city said that they didn't see that people parking in their yards and running up the yards in a neighborhood was appealing for their neighborhood. It brought the neighborhood down. As far as the master plan goes, the master plan, yeah, the first master plan was done in the 40s, but it's done every 20 years. And we're constantly updating the master plan. And so there's nobody in this community that's come to us and said, we want our neighborhoods to be run down. That we want our neighborhoods to be unappealing. Everybody moves to Lake Jackson, and they've made an investment in the community by coming here, and they've made the choice of living here. And again, this is just an issue that's been brought to us, and we have to decide if this is an issue that, and we did back in 2018, this was an issue that we wanted to step in to try to address. And so that's what we did with the original ordinance. Again, the original ordinance has made some improvement.
But it's also created some safety issues and will continue as we
The
grow.
safety, the street parking was an issue before this ordinance was put in place.
Right, but this will
Okay.
increase it.
But people still have the option of parking in their street. We are not taking, in parking in their yard. We're not taking it away from them. It's just like, again, we define what a driveway is. We're defining what a parking space is. At the end of the day, you could probably say that we might have probably had an ordinance in place in the past that could have handled this anyway. But the thing is that ordinance probably would have dictated that you would have had to have concrete. But we do have an ordinance that says that if you're gonna park at your property, your parking spaces are 9 by 18 feet. That has been a long-term ordinance. So for every vehicle that you want to park in your yard, at your property, it needs to accommodate a 9 by 18 foot square area. That's been on the books forever, for a long period of time. But this one, we went and said that, again, this was addressed parking in yards. And again, we're not saying no parking in yards. We're just saying if you're going to park in your yard, or if you're going to add a parking space, this is what it should be. And again, we backed off on the requirements. We're not saying it has to be concrete. If you can put it in, it can be crushed stone or so forth. And shell or whatever. Well, you can't do shell anymore. No, you can't get shell anymore. That goes back to my days of, I knew whenever school was over, because the first day after school, the first day of summer, there was a truckload of shell in our driveway. And we had to shovel shell during the summer at my parents' house. I have some bad memories of shell. No.
A lot of flat tires.
Yeah. But anyway, so, yeah, I mean, we all look and we really respect, we don't just willy-nilly go out there and, like you say, take away people's rights, property rights. We don't do that. We look at what's best for the community and we try to address those as best. I mean, there are avenues, if there are issues, there are avenues where an individual can come back to council and discuss it with us.
Is there an ability to get waivers for this?
No, there's options of, if somebody wants to come and say, okay, I can't fit a parking space because of my easement in the front, okay? If we can't work with you and figure out a way to do that, then there is a possibility you could come back to us and ask for approval for encroachment on the easement. But that's not an easy process. I mean, it's something we don't provide on a regular basis, but it's something we could look at if somebody needs it. But it would be a case-by-case situation.
And you know, I'm certainly not accusing anybody of being a tyrant up here by any stretch. I don't think that anybody's purposely trying to infringe on people's property rights. That bigger point that I made at the beginning of my discussion here is this is how they get eroded, though, right? Not in one big fell swoop.
I understand.
But these little tiny pieces that slowly, you know, today we have to have some sort of base.
Right.
That's not good enough for squeaky wheels that are out there. 5 years from now, it's concrete, and then it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. You know, and eventually the city's controlling everything that's going on within the real estate that I'm paying for. Anyway, like Rhonda says, this is not a hill that I'm up here to die on.
Well, the other thing that, yeah, and I appreciate you coming to us and talk to us and so forth. And again, I do greatly appreciate it. And I respect your opinion. You've given it to me several times, and I appreciate it. The other thing I want to talk real quick on is we keep on getting the issue of is that we do not allow people to park on sidewalks. That is a state law
yeah,
that we have to enforce.
sure.
So if anybody wants to change that, 1-800.
State of Texas. Yeah, I agree.
But, that's a state of Texas law, and we're required to enforce it. And that's why that's not an issue that we can handle here. But we get nailed on all the time, and it's just, It's not. Now, again, we'll talk about it in our strategic planning that's gonna be coming up after the first of the year. I've talked to Modesto several times, I mentioned it a little bit the other day, is that I'm going to recommend to council some changes that are going to allow, or should allow us to widen our streets as we rebuild them and as we add new streets. But there's pluses and minuses to wider streets, because the wider the streets you go, the more speeding issues you get.
The more of my property you just took away too.
That's right. Yeah, so that's the other thing, if it's new or old, if it's new subdivision or old subdivision. So that's another thing that's out there, but again, if, we've got to, that's something that we will discuss, is there a different approach to address the issues that we have?
Won't be taking any more of your property, it still would be 16-foot easement part that.
You just won't have to mow
You're
that
covering up
4
the part
foot-
we
you won't
already
have to mow
have.
that 4
We
foot
already have,
section.
Yeah, but I still get to use it. I still get to enjoy it, right? Now I won't.
Well, there's just be strict concrete instead of grass, so.
But anyway, that's
I
just-
want the grass.
You don't want the grass. But anyway.
That's the whole point of my being here.
I hear you, I hear you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, anybody else? Yep. Name and address, please.
Jay Foster, 614 Oleander. I agree with Mike a lot on the whole property rights issue, but I have actually two other issues to address on this. First is a public safety issue. There are many streets where there's parking on both sides of the street. And at this time, fire trucks are only getting bigger. Ambulances and other emergency vehicles are only getting bigger. So my question would be, if there's an emergency call and a fire truck and or ambulance cannot safely get down that street to my family that is in an emergency, who is ultimately responsible?
It's, I guess it would be the people that parked in the street.
Or
It's
was it
Well,
the
the people
city?
that caused the
It's not
emergency.
the ci- It's not the city, and it's not you.
The
it's
city
not the
ordinance
fire
is
department.
impeding the flow of
No.
emergency vehicles to safely get down the streets
No.
because they cannot park in there.
That won't fly in court, no.
Well, they,
The other thing
But
is that there is a state law that requires that whenever you park your vehicle, you have to ensure that there's at least 10 feet of clearance. Okay? We can't enforce, I've talked to the PD about it, it's something we can't enforce because we don't know who parked first.
Okay.
Okay, but at the end of the day, the state law says that whenever you park, just like when I took driver's ed years ago, 64 years old, but years ago is that when you parked in a street, you never parked across from somebody else on the street. It was a zigzag.
You're
Okay.
right, but this happens. You go down Centerway now,
I understand.
you're not going to get down Centerway. It's a one-way street at this point because you have to wait for people to go down either side because both sides of the street are full of vehicles. You're going to have issues with emergency vehicles getting down these streets. You already have it, and it's only going to inimitably get worse. My second option that I have an issue with is, what about those that live on streets that are not allowed to park on the street? Ligustrum, they are not allowed to park on the street across the street from A.T.
school.
Boydell.
Right.
There are signs that clearly state they are not allowed to park on the street. So now they have nowhere else to park if they have multiple vehicles. So you've already limited, says, hey, we're not going to allow you to park in your yard. Oh, and by the way, because you chose to live on this street, you cannot park in the street. So where are they going to park?
Again, they have the option of putting improved
So,
services.
so it is
and-
now
and
on their
park.
burden through the city that they must pay money
Again,
out of their own
the-
pockets
the-
just
the-
because they own a vehicle.
The city is not responsible for providing parking in neighborhoods.
No, but they should be allowed to park on their property
They can,
as long as they pay the money.
as long as they put in improved surface in.
As
Just
long as
like
they
if
pay
you
the
have a
money.
driveway, just
so
like if
that-
you have a driveway.
So I can pay the money to park on the property that I already pay for, that I already get taxed on.
The one thing I do want to, clarify is this ordinance has been in place since 2019. Those restrictions are already in place. The only change that is being proposed in the next agenda item is to clarify,
Clarification.
the surface, the depth of the surface and some material. But it is already required for the last 2 years that if you were going to park, it had to be on an approved surface, that you couldn't park on the grass. That's been in place for the last couple of years, and it has been what staff has enforced, but there's been some challenges in that someone would place an inch of material and it doesn't last and stuff. So we're trying to give better clarification so we can give a citizen that here's really what you need to do. You need to build something more robust.
But I
And
think-
even then, I think the council is trying to be, cost conscious.
I think what they're asking is not to repeal the changes, the question is to repeal the ordinance.
Just
Well, that's what this
yeah.
item is.
Correct.
Yes,
That's
repeal-
this item, but the
that-
next
that-
item is
Yeah,
different.
just,
So it's not, that they're asking for the changes, it's to
so
Correct.
because you have those issues with people that live on streets that are not gonna be allowed to park on the street. So they're gonna have no option but to shell out money they may not have to be able to park. And you're forcing their hand to say, hey, no matter what, you're gonna have to pay the money. And to me, that's a greater violation of my rights than anything else that says, just because I live on this street, I don't have any other option.
that's the same way I was mentioning before, it's a two-sided coin, the other folks who want the ordinance, they feel the same way that, is,
To me, having a more open street for emergency vehicles to get down, for traffic to drive down a lot safer, is a bigger issue than somebody that decides to park their car in their yard.
But wider streets aren't always safer, because people travel faster down wider streets than they do down narrow streets, and so there'll be more speeding, and speeding's not safe. It's not always that simple of, and I tend to, when I first got to thinking about this, in my mind, the prohibition on parking in yards was gonna drive people to parking in the street. And I thought that was, give and take. But then at some point I sort of come to realize that the real answer is that they should be parking in their driveways. And if they need to make their driveway bigger, that's sort of, and you're right, it costs money, but the street is not for parking. And front yards aren't really for parking either. You should park where you're supposed to park. And I remember when I was a kid and we had me and my brother, same age, both driving, and we played musical chairs with our cars all the time, because my parents certainly weren't going to let us park in a yard, and they weren't going to let us park in the street. And so we had to get up early and go in our pajamas and move our cars because they had to go, and we got home after them. And it was a pain, but it only lasted for a little while. And we never parked in the yard and never parked in the street. And I don't know. I just don't think it's really one or the other. I don't think it's, if we can't park in the yard, we have to park in the street. I just don't think that's true.
But Jeff,
Your point's well taken, though. It does cost money to fix the yards up, but
If you have the room in the yard to be able to do that, as defined by the 9 by 13 foot space, there's a lot of yards in Lake Jackson that don't have that
These older
additional
neighborhoods,
space.
like in that Ligustrum area, there are houses that don't have that room.
Right.
So they're not gonna be able to abide by your 9 by 13, 3-inch improved deals to have that room. And not only that, there are signs all around that school that do not allow street parking. So where are they going? So they're handcuffed at this point. They don't have either option now.
no, they still have the option. They have the option of.
What option do they have?
Of putting an to put another parking
But
space.
if they don't
in
have
there.
the room in their yard,
Do I know?
if they don't
But-
have the room in their yard by your
Then,
9 by 13,
Again, then
then
that
they
is
don't.
whenever if by individual, they could come and say, I need to encroach on the 16-foot easement by a foot or 2 foot or whatever. And then we agree that it's acceptable or not. Because then we will look and see where the actual utility lines are and decide if we really need that whole 16 feet to go do this. The other thing is, you're making the assumption of is that parking was not an issue before this ordinance parking in the street was not an issue before this ordinance in place. People still chose, even if we did allow for parking in the yard, people still chose to park in the street. So we could do away with this ordinance and people will still park in the street, and they will still block the emergency vehicles like you're saying. I have not had the fire chief or EMS come to me or this city council and say that they have not been able to make it to a fire. What I do know is they will make it to a fire if they have to drive through the street and take off every side view mirror, or if they have to drive through yards, or if they have to roll out 100 feet of hose. They'll get it there. Now, if they come to us and start saying, if they come to our strategic planning and say, guys, we can't get down the street, we need something done, I haven't heard that. This council has not heard that.
Sherry, is it true that I can park in my backyard without improving the surface?
Right, so the way the ordinance is written, you can, you only need to put the improved surface if it's visible from the right of way. So if you can get to your backyard in somehow.
Sure.
Then you can park in your backyard.
So you can drive through your front yard to get into your backyard.
I'm, not going there. We have this whole, yeah, I mean, we could make another
I don't know, I'm
ordinance.
just
We could
asking.
make another ordinance and say, if you're driving to your backyard,
You gotta
Don't
have an improved
write
drive.
it up.
Your
Gotta
vehicle
improve
does, though, need to be not defined as a junk vehicle. You cannot park a junk vehicle.
Which we already have an
Yeah.
ordinance
Right.
addressing
Yeah.
junk vehicles.
We will
Yeah,
have,
it's-
we will have those removed.
And,
Yes.
and again, I need to close this off so we can make a decision on what we want to do. But the other thing is that I wanted to just say, we talk about property rights and stuff, and people say infringing and stuff. And it's just interesting is that whenever, Rhonda put her post out on Facebook asking people for feedback. And I was reading through the feedback that I got, and there was people that were strongly on both sides. But what's interesting is that when you start getting people to say, well, this is infringement on property rights, but they said, well, I could see having an ordinance like this if it's a junk vehicle parked in the front yard. Okay, that means that you're okay with infringing on some of these so-called property rights you're talking about if it's a junk car. But if it's a drivable car, then I don't have a problem with them parking in the yard. So where do you draw the line?
That's the question.
Where do you draw the line? And so that's up to us as a council to look at it and have the conversation, again, like we're doing again this time. We did it in 2018, we're having again now. We're having the conversation of deciding, is this an issue that we want to address? If it's a large enough issue across the city, is this something we want to address? And, that's where we're at right now.
Call the question.
Okay, we have a call. The question, that's to call to stop the discussion, end the discussion. So that's an immediate vote, so I have to canvass the council if they want to end the discussion and go to a vote. So all in agreement to end discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll end discussion, and we'll go forward with, is there any action the council would like to take on item 7? I'll ask one more time.
So would I need to make a motion?
You would need to make a motion if you want to,
Okay,
if you want to repeal this.
okay, so Mayor, I
Start
would like
that, what'll be is you'll start the process because it has to come back as,
several public hearings.
as an ordinance change.
Okay, so I would like to make the motion, fix me if I say this wrong, to repeal the ordinance defining parking surfaces in residential yards. Is that right?
Yep, that's good enough.
So for purposes of discussion, I will second that ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
We're gonna bring this back and discuss it again. Is this what this is for?
This is, if you vote for it, well then Sherry will go write an ordinance to repeal this ordinance, and it will come back to us twice.
Okay.
If you vote to not accept this, this motion, then it just ends here and we move on to item 8.
Okay.
All right, is that clear with everyone?
Yes.
All right, so that was motion by Seth, second by Sinhanya. Okay, all that approve the motion of denying or repealing this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion dies because of lack of majority, and so it's denied.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to item 8, which is discuss and consider ordinance amending Chapter 98, Traffic and Vehicles, to better define the types of parking services allowed in residential yards and to eliminate the specific event or special event exception. This is first reading. This is, Sherry brought back our comments that we made last council meeting in the form of this ordinance. And Modesto, if you would read the ordinance.
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance of the City of Lake Jackson, Texas, amending Chapter 98 Traffic and Vehicles in the Lake Jackson Code of Ordinances to better define the types of parking surfaces allowed in residential yards, and to eliminate the special event exception, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith shall be repealed to the extent of the conflict only, providing for penalties, providing a savings clause, and providing for publication.
Okay, so I'll take a motion on this ordinance.
Move for approval.
A motion to approve. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. Discussion.
Is that Baker or Sinani second?
Sinhanya, second.
I mean, I do think there are lots of benefits and drawbacks to this ordinance. I do think it is ultimately net positive for the city. And I am a firm believer that any ordinances need to be written ambiguously as possible so that they are not open to misinterpretation or confusing interpretation, and so that they are consistently applied by our enforcement staff. And so I would, I'm in favor of adopting this because I think the ordinance as drafted by Sherry accomplishes those goals and makes it a better ordinance than it was passed in 2018.
Okay. Any other comment? Any comments from our audience? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. All right, the motion is approved. We'll have a second reading at next council meeting, so people have opportunity to have input then also. Okay, we're going to go to item 9, is discuss and consider amending Chapter 98, Traffic and Vehicle to prohibit U-turns at the intersection of eastbound lanes, Orchard Creek Drive and Sandalwood Drive. First reading.
This is an ordinance of the City of Lake Jackson, Texas, amending Chapter 98 Traffic and Vehicles to prohibit U-turns at the intersection of the eastbound lanes of Oyster Creek Drive with Sandalwood Drive, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith shall be repealed to the extent of the conflict only, providing for a penalty, providing a savings clause, and providing that this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced 5 days after publication.
All right, we've heard the ordinance. I need a motion, and then we'll go into discussion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, and for further discussion, do you want to give us an update, if there's anything that you have to update us on? Probably not.
I've just been out there and taken a look at the area. I think I can go ahead and get the signage up on the mast arms, or I'll work with John and see what we think is going to be better, either the mast arms or down on the side. I would prefer it to be on the mast arms. I think that's more visible to all the drivers. But once we determine that, then I will get with Mr. Modesto, and we'll see where we're going to go from there.
We talked about putting the do not entry on that one side. And I was telling Modesto was that I was looking over there where you turn in off of, is it this way, in front of Denny's into the Lowe's parking lot. It's got the same situation, except there's no traffic light. And what they have is at the front of that median, at the front, they just have a sign, you know, on a 6-foot pole, white sign that says, enter here, instead of having do not enter if it's further down.
Yeah.
You know, in the streetway and stuff. And
The only thing that I have there about putting any signage at this location at Sandalwood and Oyster Creek Drive is that I would have to go out there in a car, because I have a truck, so I can see a little bit better than most people. I'll go out there in a car in a lower vehicle and make sure that any locations that I would put any signage is not going to block view.
Right.
On the people coming out of Sandalwood, you definitely don't want to block their view of oncoming traffic. So I would have to, you know, make sure of that. Like I said, I'll have to get a car and look and make sure that my viewpoints are good. But there is 2 potential locations that I could put some signage, and we're open to what we can do. We can either do the do not enter like we've done out here at Plantation, where you're coming off Oleander and Walnut and all that, or we could do something like what's over there, the Lowe's.
yeah.
Let me know if you need to ride in a car. I'll take
Do you have a car? Because all my vehicles are a little bit higher.
Yeah. So is there any discussion on the ordinance?
No.
Any comments from the audience? If not, we'll move forward. We have a motion and a second, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And this is first reading again, so we'll be back next meeting. Okay, All right. Non-funded mandates. No, I didn't say that. Item 10, review Senate Bill 3, requirements for water utilities system. Deb.
So I wanted to come in front of you guys and let you know where we are on this Senate Bill 3. This bill was passed in response to Winter Storm Uri last year when everyone lost power. So the grid basically is in pretty bad shape, and they've put the onus on the cities to respond about how we are going to supply power if we lose the grid again. So there's three parts to this bill. And the first part was we had to notify our electric providers of critical infrastructure and priority status. We've done that, and we have been approved through CenterPoint and JEXA, who are our providers. They agree that any water facility or any lift station is critical infrastructure. So when they restore power, we should be the first restored.
But does that keep them from cutting it off?
No. They should look at it. You know, this is the same thing that we've experienced before, where the wastewater treatment plant is on the same power grid as the hospital.
Right.
They should recognize that. They didn't in the last storm, so we have resubmitted all the addresses, the locations, and the EID numbers again to them in hopes that they will recognize that moving forward.
Again, I mean, this is one of those where we had many facilities already on this list, and in Winter Storm Uri, they all got shut down, along with everybody else.
Well, see, that's the thing is that, you know, way back whenever they came out, and they said, we're gonna put these smart meters at everybody's home. So we can cycle homes and do all this kind of stuff and all this great and wonderful thing. Well, then this storm hits, and they come back, and people say, well, why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you do brownouts for just certain homes that, you know, didn't have somebody that's on a, you know, oxygen machine or whatever type stuff? And they said because the impact was so high, they just had to just start wiping out whole areas. They couldn't go meter by meter and stuff. So again, what we're gonna end up doing is that, yeah, for the unique situation, well, for the occasional small brownout situation, yeah, they might be able to take care of it. But this doesn't answer any kind of another Uri. In no way does this answer any kind of Uri, other than we're gonna have to go spend, that's mandated by the state of Texas, go spend another $200,000 on generators that we probably shouldn't have to go spend. If they wanna make this requirement on us, send us $200,000.
That's right. So, and that is what they're requiring. So right now, the wastewater plant and the water plants at Oak Drive, Beechwood, and North Plant have generators. We've got well 15 and 17, they have generators. So what they did is they looked at water usage, peak water usage, and they gave us a number. You have to meet this number. You have to be able to supply this amount of water to your residents, which gives us 2 more wells that they're going to require that we have generators at. So,
Deb, and the mayor asked me, you know, this question. In the equation is, I mean, did they calculate the amount that BWA can provide to us, even though we don't take our full allotment? Is that part of the equation?
it's part of it.
And we're
it's
still
part of it.
required to
Yep.
provide generation.
So even though BWA says they can provide 100% of our daily demand, we're gonna have to, that's still not good enough for TCEQ.
No, the formula that they used was, what is your peak flow over the last 3 years on the high usage day? And so you go and you calculate that, and they say 5.5 is the number that we have to comply with. So, in order to get, to use the least number of wells, we took the highest producing wells. So we added number 5 and number 16 to the plan, which both can, that gets us to the number. Instead of using 3 or 4 slower producing wells and having to have 4 generators, we used the 2 high producers, yeah, and that gets us to the number of 2. But It is gonna cost money.
When do we have to be when do we have to be implemented?
So the plan starts July 1st
So we
of
have to have,
2022.
our solution in place by July 1st.
The solution that we have submitted to TCEQ and we're waiting acceptance of is that for this first part, we will take the hurricane generators that we're already renting. We rent those from July 15th through October 15th. So this first time around, we're gonna say that we're gonna rent them starting on June 30th, which is 2 weeks early. But I'm gonna need to take 2 of those and park them at these 2 wells.
Yeah.
So-
So we're in compliance at the very beginning, but once our rental period ends in October, we're out of compliance. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room to start hunting for a permanent solution. So what you'll see most likely is we'll be coming back in January to amend either the utility capital budget or, again, I'm running into this well now, the AR funds, 10 times over of buying, generators. Because my fear is, and Deb's fear as well, is this mandate is applying to every city in Texas, every water authority in Texas. And so all of us are going to be hunting generators.
Yeah.
Now, we've had our assessment at TCQ with preliminary approval. We're very early in the game, so we kind of know where we are. So it's probably going to behoove us to get a jump on this, because I would say by the time April is, everybody's already knows what they need to do. There's going to be a mad rush for generators, and none are going to be available. And
Yeah.
we're not talking cheap generators. We're talking 75,000 plus generators.
Yeah, there's already a backlog on generators.
Plus yearly maintenance and upkeep, and testing, and certification.
So is this just to keep our water pressure above 40 PSI to avoid?
Above 20
Over
PSI.
20 to keep boil water notice?
Yes.
Okay.
What kind of shape are the rest of our generators in?
We have 3 right now that we're scheduled to have that capital discussion. We need to replace, it's time to replace our generator at the wastewater treatment plant. That's 1.2 million. It's time to replace our generator at both water distribution plants. Those are 650,000 apiece. We already have an order for the fire station generator. That was, I think, in the 60,000. That's we ordered that in April.
April or so,
And
right.
they've pushed that delivery date back until, I believe, March or April also.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're lucky we'll see it in a year.
So, there's already been a pinch due to COVID. In addition now to the demand is gonna spike. So,
So we've got this Senate bill, and you've explained the plan that we've got in place for it and what the impact is. Is there anything else?
No, that's it. I just
Anything else?
we just
So
wanted
then,
to,
and then after we buy the generators, then they're gonna fix the grid, and then we won't need the generators, because everything's gonna be awesome.
So basically, we
Everyone know
really need 5 generators at this point.
At this point,
These 2 new ones.
yeah, out of the,
It's gonna be here in
Yes, time to upgrade the
3
others
weeks.
too, so,
Coming
yeah,
down.
we're good.
where we are.
It's a
And,
million.
you know,
The other generators
Then you can't
are,
get 'em.
have been identified and they're on our radar. It's just, this is bad timing. They're at their end of their useful life. And it just happened to be a happy coincidence that Senate Bill 3 hit us at the same time.
Yeah, but anyway, I won't go there. Anyway, there's gonna be some discussions later down the road.
You're not
I
gonna
mean,
get hit with a beer truck. You're gonna
No,
get
I'm
hit
not
with
gonna get a beer truck, but, I mean, if, the county's already pushing back on the mandate that the state did on lifeguards, which I think was a raw deal for the county. And so, Cody has agreed that he's gonna take that battle back. So this is something we need to push back on. And we'll be talking to Cody and whoever else we need to address this, because this is, it's, like I said, it's not only the dollars, it's just availability of equipment. So they're putting impossible expectations on our cities. And at the end of the day, if we if we can't meet those mandates, we're the bad guys, instead of the state being the man. It goes back to ERCOT was a mistake. They haven't, yeah, anyway, okay, preaching to the
Thank you,
choir.
Debbie.
Thank you very much, Deb. All right, so we're gonna go to item 11, which is award bid to Jayco Roofing for the Recreation Center flat roof repair in the amount not to exceed $225,500. Robin?
Yes. The current recreation center roof, with the exception of the gymnasium roof that was replaced in 2009 after what is the original roof that was installed in 1997. So after 24 years, it needs to be replaced. So we went out for bids on, and in the bid process, the work options were, we did a base bid, which was the flat roof, which is a single ply, 50 mil thick, plus two small front entry metal roof replacements, and then there was some alternates. Alternate one was remove and replace the metal trim on the walkway cover when you come into the recreation center, and that's just the trim part of it, the green part. Alternate two was upgrade the single ply from 50 mil to 60 mil, and alternate three was to remove and replace the complete natatorium barrel roof system on the natatorium part of that. The bids were open on the 27th with the following tabulated results. Jayco Roofing from Clute, Texas, the base bid was at $223,000. The alternate number one came in at $2,500. Alternate number two at $9,600, and then alternate number three for the natatorium was $348,000. Origin Metal Roofing was the other company that bid, and their base bid was at $300. Sorry, I left my glasses in the thing. $600,000. Alternate one was $4,800. Alternate two $10,000, and alternate three was $580,000. We are recommending to award the bid to Jayco Roofing as a responsive low bidder in the amount of $225,500 to include base bid and the alternate one, which would be the trim part.
Right.
We are also recommending that alternate two and alternate three be rejected, and that Jayco be reconsidered to perform the replacement of the natatorium roof under the TIPS. This is the interlocal purchasing system proposal as recommended by the city manager and the architect's letter of opinion that includes installation and retrofit single ply system to the existing metal roof. And then there were some attachments on that.
Have we used these folks before?
Yes, Jayco was actually the original
Builder, roofer?
that put the roof in and has done
So
the
they're
majority of the
familiar with it.
repairs.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we use them all the time.
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, technically what we're asking to award the low bid to Jayco Roofing as the low bidder
Right.
for the base bid and alternate one.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't have to reject the
Yeah.
alternates.
By accepting him, then we, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No. Anybody? All right, so I'll take a motion on this item.
Well, move to approve the low bidder Jayco Roofing for rec center flat roof repair in the amount of $225,000, which includes base bid and alternate one.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Second?
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So we're gonna move on to item 12, which is award bid for Jayco Roofing under the TIPS purchasing contract 210600302 for the replacement of the Recreation Center natatorium roof in an amount not to exceed $177,275. So this is the other pieces, the alt.
Yes, yeah, this would be for the natatorium roof, which is on the back. Again, this is the original roof that was installed. We are recommending to award the natatorium replacement under their contract of the TIPS purchasing proposal. Again, that's recommended by the architect and not
Yeah.
to exceed, yeah, sorry.
So Robin took some pictures,
Right.
so you could see really, well, if you can.
Yeah,
Mine's
you
gonna
zoom
can
into
The metal
see
roof, it's very tough to see the natatorium roof, and so the proposal that Robin, Sal, and the architect and Jayco have come up with is to, keep the metal roof on there, and then I guess sandwich with foam insulation, and then put a two-ply on there. And we were surprised in the meeting, they do this quite extensively.
Yeah.
And they were able to give us 40, at least in the last year, or 35 to 38 times that they've done this. And so we asked them to at least provide the specifications to the architect, and our architect was satisfied with what they were proposing to meet Windstorm. And I think, are we looking to come back with a green roof?
Yes, it'll be the green, and it would match as much as you can, even if, I mean, considering the other roof, the metal roof on the
It's gonna
gym.
fade anyway.
It's
so.
gonna fade anyway, yes, yeah, but, it hasn't faded as much, so I think but it's still gonna match.
You don't have much car traffic back there anyway, do you?
No, you can't. Again, I walk back there unless you really, get up there and you're looking at it.
And
you
really,
can't
no one
see.
gets on
And no-
that
yeah.
roof. There's no air conditioning or anything on it. So it's, it may be.
Right, and considering this roof lasted 24 years, I mean, we've had to do some repairs, I think that's a good very good option.
It's older than some people in the room.
Look out now.
And if I read this correctly, it's like a 20-year warranty?
Yes,
Is
they
that
both have
correct?
20-year, yes, it's a 20-year warranty. yeah.
On the table, not in the room.
Any other questions? All right, I'll take a motion on this
Move
item.
for approval.
Motion to approve,
Second.
a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move on to city managers' updates, hurricane and the holidays. Ho, ho, ho.
I don't know if I have any good news on Hurricane Nicholas yet on the material, where Sabrina briefed me right prior to the meeting that we may get approval to at least mulch the material and leave it in place.
And hope for a strong storm to
And
blow it
definitely,
away.
that confuses me, so, and they don't know if they'll attest to that in writing right now, so we'll still have to wait. We have reached out to a couple of engineering firms to see if they can guide us through the regulatory process rather than the storm process, to see if we can convince TCEQ for allowance to spread that material, permanently, and see if we could, it's, get, a permanent approval, because this will not be the last storm that we have. The landfill is slowly becoming out of, compliance. Yes, you will see several more storms, and see if we can, get, some, something other than temporary.
Have an accidental fire.
We've had those before.
We have had those
The
before.
problem
We know
is
what that-
controlling. But, what's frustrating though is that, when Modesto was telling me what he's talking about is that, we've been trying to get TCEQ to give us some approvals to do some things. And so finally, basically, the response we got back was, what you guys really needed to go do is go hire an engineering group to work you through the process. So we got to pay an engineering group to work us through the permitting process, so we could find out if we can get a permit to do what we want to do. And it just seems so ridiculous.
It's a racket.
Is that you have an agency that should be helping you work through the process, but I'm sure they're not funded well.
I
either.
really think that they're fearful of not so much the mulch of the
I know.
the methodology.
They want an engineering group to approve, to say that we won't impact the membrane over the
Landfill.
yeah, the
And that's what
landfill.
we're gonna hunt for, is like, you can spread it, with this load of a tractor, at this application rate over the 2 acres, should be sufficient. I'm hoping if we can get that they would give us approval.
I'm glad we were that smart 2 times ago. That we knew how to do it.
We were. We have done this twice before, and we've been
Proven that-
successful.
We've proven that we haven't
but
damaged the
that
capsule.
is not a convincing enough story yet.
No.
Anything else on that one? Rena?
No, I got that call really late this afternoon, and tried to listen to the gentleman. He just recently had throat surgery, so it's very hard to understand even to hear him.
Well, hopefully you can send us something in writing.
He probably said that we could spread
You
it.
were approved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard.
You know what? Now that I think about it, that's probably
Just do
exactly
it.
what he said.
You can probably spread it.
I hope to hear from the engineering companies that I've reached out to tomorrow they have experience in this matter to see what's going on. I believe what there really is that TCEQ wants to see if we're going a deep, in-depth analysis of what will happen if we put this much mulch
Yeah.
on top of this landfill.
Okay. Holidays?
And Sal says he doesn't want to do it, so,
Sal doesn't want to do it.
yeah.
So, Ms. Sabrina, if you want to talk about the holidays in the
Sit
park,
down, Sabrina.
or would you like?
So everyone should have gotten one of these mailers. We sent one out to every resident. So following the Festival of Lights, which went amazingly, I think everyone can agree. We started Light Up Lake Jackson, which is what we did last year. We're bringing it back this year because it got such positive feedback last year. We implemented the movie after the Festival of Lights parade, which was very well attended for it being the first year. We're currently in the coloring competition and the submit your address for the house decorating competition. Those both end on Wednesday, so please encourage people to do both. There's very nice monetary rewards if you win first, second, or third place on those. We also, you'll see on your postcard, we have a lot of different events going on through December. The big one that we are continuing this year is the Santa Tours. So if you remember last year, we put more than one Santa on a fire truck, and we had them drive around the city limits. So we're going to try and do something very similar to that this year, and maybe adapt it a little bit. We've been looking at what other cities do, so
Is Santa GPS tracked?
You're going to do
Yes.
GPS again?
yes.
That's good.
Thankfully, that code is replicable that we did very quickly last year, so everything should work smoothly again. I'll have more information. I'll send out emails. You'll also see some emails coming out about different city holiday events. So if you saw the one today, the police department is inviting all of council, and you get a +1, so pick your favorite family member, to their banquet on Wednesday. It is a little bit of short notice, but please let us know if you want to come so that
You need to bring your wife.
Chief Thibodeau can Chief Thibodeau can get a good head count. If you can't come, just let us know. You can send a text or an email, whatever works. I'm also going to be looking for a lot of judges for the different city events that we have going on. So, if you're interested in being a judge, please let me know. I'll send out an email and probably a text at some point this week, just so we can get those ironed out. So, 2 plus 2.
4.
Plus 4.
Plus 4.
Going once, going twice. Okay, so those are some of the big events that we have. We're very excited. Love Christmas, so.
That's great. It's just, looking across the whole area, it's great to see all these other cities, getting involved and doing their things too. And if people have all kind of opportunity to go and experience the holiday season, so that's great to see that all these other communities are doing other items. Some of them are better than ours, some aren't quite, but,
If you see any, let me know, because,
that are good.
oh
Better.
yeah, we're down to copy and paste.
Yeah. That's the best way sometimes.
It is.
How tall is that tree we have out there?
I believe it's 14 feet tall. We can add on 2 feet every year. It was like, we bought that tree for that purpose.
Yeah.
I got Modesto to approve what we could, budget-wise, so.
It's 17 feet tall. You have to count
What's
the
the
base.
max height?
You have to count the fountain base.
I think.
Well, the mayor of Angleton was
the max
asking
is
me.
like 20 to 22 feet.
Because theirs is like 22 foot tall.
It is.
With the star, it's
We
probably
can add 2
25.
every year. We can add 2 feet every year if you want, which I
Yeah.
think we should.
Hope I'm around.
Yeah,
grows.
so good stuff. And, okay, well then,
Buy some.
the only suggestion I've gotten is, the Christmas balls that we put out by the Civic Center. We need to get lighting on those in future years.
Okay, are you thinking like actual
Just
lights or like spotlights? Okay.
Spotlight, yeah, spotlight, so, because there's people that want to go out there and take pictures in the
At
evening
night.
and it's not able to do it.
Yeah.
Those are a good ad. I know that you always, every year you're
Yeah.
going to try to add as you can, as Modesto releases some
Thank
funds
you.
and stuff, so.
It's
Those are all good
He
stuff.
is a tightwad. I
Yeah,
tried.
well, that's why we hired him.
Christmas spirit, Modesto. Christmas spirit.
Yeah, that's right.
I got 2 things
Scrooge.
for you
Chunk
this
of
year.
coal. All right, so we'll move on to construction updates. Most exciting man in Lake Jackson.
Pulled his back getting up.
Yeah,
here.
pulled his back. Charlie Horse. Most.
Sal's bringing more projects than he
Speaking of
completes.
Stop,
Yeah,
Sal.
so the curse of,
Job security.
Yeah.
curse of the Yeni curse. I told Melissa this
I
morning.
like that. Unique curse.
It's still upon us. Really, the work
You know he's probably watching.
He's mad.
Transparency overall.
He's madly typing now. On
That was
YouTube.
Sal who was speaking.
It's time for you to leave. No, really, the construction projects have slowed down now quite a bit. We finished all the Walnut project is complete now. You probably traveled through that open area. And we are now in the process of doing the second portion of the Azalea Street spur off of Circle Way. Beyond that one, we still have projects going on the design side of things, which is that we're working towards, and that is the road to the transport and to the mulching site, which would be the next project we're going to be doing. All the sanitary projects that were undertaken some time back have been completed now entirely. Even the emergency jobs that arose during that course of time have already been completed, and they are out. The repair jobs to the fire stations are now complete also. So basically, we're right now in the process of putting out more design projects. I have not moved the Shy Pond outfall any at this particular time.
You keep kicking that can down the road.
That can is going to be, we're going to have to own up to doing something, no toys about that. But at this time, we haven't gone any further than that.
Okay. You're talking about sewer projects and emergency sewer projects we had, and I don't know if it fell in your area or if it was Sabrina's area, but we did have that one resident that I was contacted about that their neighbor just moved into their home and was having sewer problems and stuff, and they're really appreciative, the neighbor and the resident, of how we stepped in and took care of that. So it was a lot of work on our side, I think, but we made a lot of points with the neighborhood.
Yes, well, I mean, it really gave us, sometimes you finish a project and you don't know what you have done.
Right.
And this one showed that we didn't really, well, the videos that were taken at that time weren't really looked at properly. So, but at least we got out of that one with the least amount of expense, even though it was expensive.
And then downtown?
So for bond project updates, you guys should have seen the letter that I sent out to all the property and business owners. If you want a paper copy, I brought extras. But it was basically giving them an update. We are going to be having our pre-construction meeting. They were all invited. Myself, Sal, and then our engineering firm, Kimley Horn. You guys have met with them. They've presented. And then Main Lane, who is our selected contractor. We will all be meeting and discussing an updated version of the 90% presentation that Kimley Horn presented a few months back now. It'll be updated and have all the most recent, including a map, for them to see sort of what the flow is going to look like for the project. I'm sure that will be probably the biggest talking point of this, is when is it going to hit my storefront, my street. So we plan on spending a lot of time talking about that. The biggest thing, so that meeting is this Wednesday at 7 o'clock in this room. So you're more than welcome to attend. That was why I forwarded you all the email as well. But if you do plan on coming, please let me know, just so we make sure it doesn't turn into a public meeting. So
That's Christmas dinner time.
Christmas dinner time.
it is. So we're quickly coming from PD to here. Dinner's at 6. So, but the other thing is we are going to be creating a dedicated page on the website specifically for the downtown project. And it's basically going to be like a thread of all the construction updates that we feel like the public, especially the property and business owners, should be getting, because we send out letters or emails. Even I've tried to collect emails as best as we could, but sometimes they don't see that. So this will be just a continuous thread where they can see every update. So the first thing on the page will be the presentation that we're giving on Wednesday. And then as any updates arise, they will be put on there. So we are providing them with that link and telling them that's a good reference point. So
Then the canopy hold harmless agreement?
So Sherry came up with a draft of it. The first person I reached out to was Dr. Anderson and his representative. mostly because they own over 50% of the involved properties with the canopies. I wanted to ensure that any changes they might have to it were done before we sent it to all the other businesses as well. But I have sent it to all of them. No one has signed yet, but I believe the attitude is pretty positive. It was not necessarily negative feedback, but they have all had the contract for over a week now, and none have been signed. But
They had a recommended change. I think Sherry's looked that over. We're going to talk to the architect tomorrow and see if it's possible. And it's a legitimate concern. I think, if I can summarize real quickly, it's just more if they already have a WPI 8 on their roof, they want to make sure that it's not, that they
Voided.
don't lose it.
Yeah.
That, we'll help make sure that it's maintained. So I think that's probably was in the bid spec for the contractor, but we need to double check and make sure.
The awning is not connected to the roof, is it?
There may be,
Disturb the roof.
there may be a
could be.
necessity to get into that,
Okay.
into that roof, yes.
And so it's a legitimate request. The question is going to be, did we require that of
During the bid.
the demolition and the contractor of that? And see, I hope we did. So we just need to resolve that issue, and I think we're probably going to
Yes.
be good, and we'll be able to come back to council.
And hopefully before the next meeting, because we only have 30 days for the bid. So
Oh,
by
less
the
than
next,
that now.
yeah, by the next meeting, I hope that we have all those signed. And if not, we'll work with the businesses to kind of tell them what their options are if they do not want to agree to the hold harmless. So
Library floor,
So that is going to be my next project. I've been working with Grace, the director over there, just to see when would be a good time for them. And so we're trying to schedule it they already have their year mapped out. So I'm trying to figure out when the best time would be for them to be closed for a pretty decent chunk of time. But as soon as we get past the downtown, specifically the canopy portion, because we have the contract is almost signed by Thorne for the animal shelter. So as soon as those two are done, I'll move on to the flooring. But that should be hopefully starting within the next month or two.
on the downtown, one thing that I was talking to Modesto about is, and I've been working on is, I think it's a perfect opportunity for us, again, seeing that the world is changing, is there's a perfect opportunity to see if we could, we've been talking to providers of charging stations for cars and see if they would be interested in doing a lease of property. It would be parking spaces, basically, to put in charging stations. And so as soon as I've got that firmed up with contacts and people, well, then I'll get you guys engaged on
That'd be great,
it.
yeah.
But I think it'd be a great time to do
Discuss
something
it.
like that.
Yeah, I agree.
But as far as I, the model is that it would be their operation. It wouldn't, all we'd be doing is making a lease
Okay,
on land.
be great.
Okay. Items of interest to community. Broad's got a wrinkled face. He's
No, I mean, it's just a lot of Christmas stuff going on. Everything I've been to so far is great. Keep an eye on city website, keep it updated, and yeah.
Renee?
Just a couple of things. The contractor Sal did a great job on Banyan and Oyster Creek Drive. They did good work. So I'm not sure who the contractor was, but they did a good job. And also, Ms. England, thank you very much for their city crew to work on Yopon. They did a bunch of patches on there, so it looks great. Much improvement for the street. Thank you. I was contacted by one of the business for Festival of Lights issue, and I'll get back with you on that if you remind me. So, thank you.
Okay. Lester? Rhonda?
I went to an annual ladies function on Sunday, and city politics came up, and I just got a lot of very positive feedback from both for the mayor and for the city on the website. I think people have really liked the communication improvements. So.
That's good. Good feedback.
No.
Nothing? Okay, real quick, again, it was mentioned a while ago, is that we had an invitation from the PD to join in on their event this Wednesday. And again, I already talked to Chief. I'm sorry that I can't attend. I have a business arrangement that I can't just get out of. So hopefully y'all will do that, have same similar thing next year, and we can plan on it. And
Truck don't hit you.
huh?
That truck don't hit you.
You have the truck don't hit me. I'm gonna be watching out for trucks now.
You may need to watch out for his truck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, that's right.
All you have to do is put a couple of cans of beer, make a beer truck.
We already talked about Festival of Lights. Again, it was outstanding. All the feedback I've gotten on it was outstanding. And the other thing is that, there's several people that were involved with the putting on Festival of Lights this year that this was their first time to really lead that project. And so they did an outstanding job for it. Yeah, we've got a cut list on things that we need to do and improve, but that's how you learn and make things better, is continue to look and see what you're doing and what worked well and what didn't work well. First off, I had some people that were saying, well, they were complaining because we didn't provide the tents, like we've had in the past. I said, we just can't afford that, going forward. But we had, all the vendors had no problem setting up. I think the way we had the vendors, circling the Civic Center was really great. And I think there's room for expansion as people get involved with that, or get used to that. The other thing, real quick, was an update that's just before Thanksgiving holidays. I've been working with Dow leadership to see if they can help, the industry can help us with our recycling questions or issues. And so Dow was able to put us in contact with an organization that's supported by the industries, not only plastic but other type of industries, and it's called Recycle Partnership. And so we had a meeting, I guess it was on the 23rd. So it was Dow representative, the director of grants and communication or community development from the Recycle Partnership, and then we also had Mayor Shiflett from Clute and CJ Snipe. Is it Snipe or Snipes?
CJ.
CJ Snipes, the city manager. We're on the call also. They brought a lot of ideas to us, and so we're working through these ideas, and we're trying to determine what's the first step. So it is something that we are continuing to work on. Staff is dedicating time toward it, and we've hired the contractor to help us with some of that. Correct?
Yes, and they were here on Friday during their site visit, looking at our operations.
Yeah. So hopefully in the future we'll have something we'll bring back to council of at least not of the final solution, but of where we're at to give y'all some good a quality amount of information to share with you folks and stuff like that. The last thing, I'm gonna go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. We talked about on the unfunded mandate that we had with the, as far as I'm concerned, Senate Bill 3, and we're having to buy all these generators and stuff like that. Today we received word from TxDOT about a bridge that's in our city limits on Old Angleton Road, going over Worcester Creek. They completed a study on that bridge, and they're going to be reducing the tonnage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so that falls right now. That falls under our cost. And we'll try. I'll have conversations. We'll have conversations with the county, but that's just a cost that we were not expecting. And as soon as I got that message, I sent a message back to Modesto. Hopefully we'll be able to see if we can get some of these federal infrastructure dollars that are supposed to be replacing bridges down here to help us replace that bridge. But we're still evaluating that and seeing what we have to do on that piece of equipment. But it's just
One thing after another.
Yeah, it's one thing after another, and we just have to prioritize where our costs go. And I'm sure this is going to bump some other items that we have on the list that we were planning on doing. So those are just things we got going on. Again, holiday season is here. Please be safe out on the road. Take time, and please, spend time with your family. That's what's important. Take the time, spend time with your family, enjoy the life that you have. With that, I'll go ahead and end. Thank you.
Yeah, I get an email back from Matt. He's like, hey, finally an affordable project, pretty much. It's like, really?
Good thing bridges aren't expensive to fix.
Yeah.